Hey guys, welcome. In this course, we'll learn how to build a complete website with the help of HTML5 and CSS3. You'll learn some of the basic elements of HTML, and we'll also learn some of the semantic elements of HTML5. With the help of CSS, we'll see how we can style our website. And with the help of CSS3, we'll see how to build a responsive design for our website, and also we'll see how we can add animations to our website. At the end of this course, you'll be able to build a complete website as a project, which will have multiple pages. It will also have a navigation bar with a drop down. We will also see how to create a mega menu in our website. And we'll also see how you can add an image slider. With the help of tables, we will see how we can structure our contents. We'll learn how to include Google Maps in our website. And also we'll see how we can include videos and audios into our website. At the end of the page, in the contact us page, we'll see how we can create a contact form. So there is a lot to learn. Let's get started. What you will need to get started is a PC with internet. You can use Mac, Linux, or Windows, anything is fine. You will need a code editor, Notepad++, Sublime Text, VS Code, brackets, and there are so many other code editors outside, so you can choose any one you like. And you'd obviously require a browser. So in my personal recommendation, I would recommend to install Chrome. Google Chrome is one of the most famous browsers being used almost worldwide everywhere. A lot of people ask me like which code editor is the best one. So here I have a simple comparison chart from Google Trends. So if you check this out, like what I have done is I have compared all Notepad++, Sublime Text, VS Atom, and brackets, some of the most popular code editors. Now you can check this out that the VS Code has more popularity when compared to other code editors. So if you ask me, VS Code is the best. To download VS Code, just go to Google and type in VS Code. And you'll get the first link. Just click on the VS Code. This will take you to the VS Code website. And based on your operating system, the installer will be selected. So I'm going to click on download for Windows. And your download will start. So what I have done is that I have already downloaded VS Code. It's in my PC. So let's go ahead and install that. I'm going to minimize this. Let's go to my PC. Let's go to downloads. And there I have it. Double click on this one. Click on I accept. Next. Next. And then make sure you tick on this one. So there is register code as an editor for self-hosted files. So click on this. Click on next and install. Okay, our VS Code is now installed. So let's click on finish. This will launch the VS Code. In case if this is not launched, what you can do is you can go to your start and look for VS Code. And you can select VS Code. That will launch the code editor for you. Now that we have installed VS Code, this is the welcome screen you will see. So let me close this, and you can see this is the structure of my folder where I'll be working. So let me create this project files where I'll be working on. I'm going to go to desktop. Let me create a folder here. I'm going to call this as HTML. And the best thing is you can actually use your VS Code to create folders and files. So you can go to your VS Code, and you can see on the desktop we have this HTML. So what I can do now is I can go to File, Open Folder, and from there in the desktop I can choose HTML and select folder. Now what happened is now my project location is changed from desktop to my HTML folder itself. So here I'm going to create a folder called lesson 1. Okay, and inside this I can create a file. So you can see these icons here. So this is going to be a new file option, this the new folder option, this is the refresh one, and this is the collapse folder. If you have too many files, you can collapse them. So the first file which you'll be working on is index.html. Now make sure that you have the .html selected. So if you don't have the .html selected, then you won't have that HTML file thing, you won't be able to launch that in the browser. So once you have this file selected, so what you can do now is you can right click here and you can copy the path. And now let's go to our browser, and in the browser, in the address bar, just right click here and paste the path and just hit enter. and you will have your document over here. So currently we can't see anything. That's because you have not written anything. So let's go back to our code editor and let's write something. I'm going to call this as hello world. Okay, let me save that and let's get back to our browser and hit refresh. Okay, we got hello world. Writing code directly inside the HTML without the markup is really not recommended. So instead we need to have a proper structure of our website. So let's get started how to build that. So first thing what you need is a doc type declaration. So I'm using the HTML5 doc type, so it's going to be HTML and that's it. So this is a declaration, document declaration for HTML5. The next thing what you would need is a HTML tag. So you can just type in HTML and close that. So one of the best things about VS Code is that it automatically closes the tag for you. So if you see this /sign beside a HTML text or HTML tag, that is a closing tag. Right after that, what we can do is we can open up a head tag, and inside that we can type in some title. So I'm going to show you what this title actually do, and right now let me just go back to the browser and show you what's actually happening. You can see that right now the document title says index.html, but what we need is a specific name for our document. So I'm going to name this as home, and right after this I'm going to specify a meta tag, and I'm going to specify a name for this meta. That's going to be description. Okay, it will have some content. I'm just going to give this. And now once I have that, the next one what I need is the body tag. So you can just type in body, and all the things like all the headings, paragraphs, images, links, what you will be adding in the further classes, you will be completely working inside the body tag that is over this area. So now let me explain you how this thing actually works. Now this is the complete HTML5 document structure. So there is an easier way to create this. If you can't remember this, you can just get rid of this entire thing and just type in HTML, and you can see that we have a context menu here that specifies HTML5. Select the HTML5 abbreviation and click on enter. Okay, now we have the complete skeleton of our HTML. Okay, now what we need to do is we need to create a simple hello world page. So we'll say hello world. Okay, let me save that. Let's get back to our browser and hit refresh. Now we have our page with the title document. So what is this document title? And if you can see here, we have the title called document, and I'm going to specify another one called meta, and I'm going to specify this in name as description. And I'll give some content to it. That's going to be this. Now you check out this thing. If you see this title document over here and this description, and now let me show you where does this actually come useful. So if you go to Google and look for web design wiki, okay, you see this thing, this blue color highlighting here, that is our title tag. And if you can see this thing, what we have here, a small description, is actually the description what you will be writing in your code. We have created our hello world page. Now I want to add some more text to our document. Let's go back to our code, and here in the next line I'm going to type in welcome to the world of code. Okay, let me save that. Let's get back to your browser and hit refresh. See what happened? The text came right beside the hello world. So what we need to do is we need to break this line. We want the welcome to the world of code, the text in the next line. So one way of doing this is right after this hello world text, you're going to write in the BR tag. So let me save this. So BR stands for break tag. So if I get back and hit refresh, see, that comes to the next line. The next thing what I need is I need a horizontal line right after the hello world. So if I need a horizontal line, all I have to do is just type in HR. So that's an horizontal line tag. So if I get back to my browser and hit refresh, you can see now that I have an horizontal line. So let's just say that I want to create something. I'm going to create another HR tag, and here I will say hello world. Now you can see that they're kind of like very close to each other. So if I get back to my browser and hit refresh, okay, that's very close to each other. I need to give some space, but I can't give an extra space like this. That's gonna just add in a single space. If I hit refresh, you can see that's just a single space. But I want this a little bit far ahead. So one of the way of doing this is you can just get rid of this one and give one space. So here we'll specify ampersand NBSP. That stands for non-breaking space. So I'm just going to copy this and paste it like around 4 times. So if I save this, get back to my browser and hit refresh, I can see we have some blank spaces. Just like in textbooks, we have headings inside HTML2. We have around 6 types of headings, starting from H1 to till H6, and then we have a paragraph. Let me show how that looks like. So to type in a first heading, just type in H1 and hit on tab. That's going to give you the first heading. So here I'm going to type in as heading, and if you want to duplicate this, there's a easier way to do it. Just hold Alt and Shift and just hit the drop down button in your keyboard. So then we have on 3, 4, 5 and 6. We have also multi-line editing inside VS Code. So you can click on this one and hold Alt and click on the other one. So you can see now 2 code have been highlighted together. So I'm going to remove this, change to H2, let's go to H3, and it's going to be H4, H5, and then we have H6. So these are the different types of headings. So let me show you how this thing looks like inside the browser. Let me save this. Let's go to our browser and hit refresh. See, H1 being the largest heading and H6 being the smallest one. Let me show you how to create a paragraph. So you can just type in P, that creates a paragraph, also called as phrase tag. So inside that, I'm going to type in lorem. So lorem is a dummy text. You can always use it. So once you type in lorem, just hit on the tab key. That's going to automatically fill in some dummy text. So what has happened is that created a huge line which I have to scroll. So I'm going to break this into multiple lines. So I'm going to click here, one here, another one here. Yeah, I think this is much enough. So I can go back to my browser and hit refresh. You can see this is my text, and then we have some headings. Every text inside the HTML some point needs to be formatted. So I'm going to show you how to format your text inside this document. So let me create a paragraph tag, and inside this I'm going to type in some lorem. Okay, so we have some dummy text here. I'm going to get back to my browser and hit refresh. Okay, we have some text here. So what I need to do is I need to add some formatting over here. So let's get back to our code, and let me get this over here, and let me break this first. Okay, I think that's fine. Okay, so here what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a bold tag. So I'm just going to say B, and here I will say I am a bold tag or bold text. We save that. If you get back to your browser and hit refresh, you can see that's a bold text. Now there's something similar when it comes to HTML5. So let's get back to the code, and right after this I'm going to type in a strong tag. I will say I am a strong text. Save that. Let's get back to the browser and hit refresh. See, totally no difference. They look completely alike. The next we have an italic tag. So I'm going to type in I, and I'll say I am a italic text. Let me save that. Let's get back to the browser and hit refresh. You can see it's inclined now. Okay, the same way we have an HTML5 element called emphasize. So I'll say EM. I am just inclined. Okay, I think that's enough. So let's get back to the browser and hit refresh. You can see totally no difference. That looks exactly the same. Okay, so these are the 2 most famous text formatting you can use inside your document. So I'll get back to our code and let's create some more formatting. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a BR tag here. So let me break that line so that we can add some more formatting here. Okay, so let's just say I want to underline something. So you can say U, and then I can simply type in I am an underlined text. Okay, let me save that. Let's get back to the browser and hit refresh. You can see we have a text which is underlined. I'm going to do the same thing inside HTML. In HTML we have something called INS, which is inserted. So I'll say I am just here. Let me save that. Let's get back to the browser and hit refresh. See, exactly the same. The next one, is a good one. So I'm going to create a BR tag. So you'll be using this a lot. So you might have gone to Amazon or any other shopping cart site. You might see a sale specifying that it was before this much price, now the price is this much, but the before price would have a strike through to it. So we're going to see how to create that one. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to simply say S, that's a strike tag, and here I'm going to say around RS, say 25, 1000. Let me save this, and if I get back to my browser and hit refresh, you can see that has been struck there. The same way we have another one inside HTML5, we have DEL tag, that's for delete. So we'll say RS, I'll say 35, 123, and save. So if I get back to my browser and hit refresh, see that also looks exactly the same. Links are one of the most important parts of HTML. With the help of links, we can navigate from one page to another page. Let me show you how you can create a link inside HTML. So in HTML, links are actually called as anchor text. So to create that, all you have to do is type in A and hit on the tab key. See, we have an attribute here. You can see something that adds up with a starting tag of your text is basically an attribute. So this is the attribute and it's asking me for some value. So let me just type in www.google.com, and inside this I can type in Google. So if I save this and get back to my browser and hit on refresh, you can see now my Google is linked to a google.com page. So if I click on this, that's going to give me an error message. Now you have to read the error messages which you see in your web page. So basically it's here saying that your file was not found. If you look at the URL here, it says that it is looking for www.google.com inside my lesson 4 document, but google.com is not a file, it's a hypertext transfer protocol. So let's get back to our code, and here we're gonna add in https://. So this will create a link for my text Google. So let's get back to our page and let's hit refresh. Before that, let's get back, and now let's hit refresh. So now if I take my cursor here and click on that, so that's gonna take me to the google.com. But what if I want the user to stay on my page but still open the google.com in a separate tab? We can do that with the help of anchor tags. So let's get back here. All we have to do is just add in an extra attribute. So this attribute is called as target. So we're gonna specify this as target_blank. So what this does is it tells the link that if the user clicks on the Google text, open this link in a new tab. Let me show you how this thing works. Let me save this, get back to the browser, and let me get back to our file. Let's hit refresh. Now if I take my cursor here and click on that, see, that opens up Google in a new tab. Working with nested links can be a little difficult. So in this class, I'm going to show you how you can link pages which are inside another folder. For example, what I have done here is I've created a folder called pages, and if I open that, you can see there are like 2 more pages inside. It says page 1 and page 2. If I open, you can see it simply says a heading called page 1, and if I open page 2, it simply says page 2. That's it. That's also in H1. So what we're going to do is in the index.html over here, we're going to connect with that page. So let me get rid of this, and I'm going to name this page as the home page. So I'll say H1, and then I'll simply call this as home page. Let me save that. And about this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create some anchor text. So I will say A, and I want to connect to that page. So if you want to find out how many pages do you have inside your folder, just hold Ctrl and hit on the space bar. So that will show you that it has a folder called pages. So let me open that, and inside that I have page 1. So let me select that one. So this page is actually page 1. Let me save that. I'm going to give a space and put a pipe over there. I'm going to create another link, and this one is going to be just hold Ctrl and hit spacebar, and we are going to go inside pages, and we have page 2. Let me name this as page 2. Let me save that. Let me copy this path. Let me get back to our browser, close this, and copy this one, paste it. It's actually the same page, so just had to refresh. So we have a home page, and then we have page 1 and page 2. So let me click on this, and this should take me to my page 1. So if I click on this, okay, we are in page 1. But now the question is, how do I get back? So The only way right now is to hit on the back button. Okay, so let me hit on the back button and let me check out the page 2. Okay, again we have the same issue. We can't go back through the web page. So what we need to do is we need to create a backlink that will take us to the home page. So let me get back to my code, and now what I have to do is I have to go inside the pages and open the page1.html, and here I have to create the back page. So here what I'm going to do is I'm just going to create an anchor tag, and inside this hold Control and hit spacebar. Now it only says page 1 and page 2. We do not have the index.html page to go back. So at this time what you're supposed to do is just hit 2 dots, say dot dot, and put a forward slash. That's going to take you out of that particular folder. So now we can see that we have an index.html page available. So let me click on that, and this is going to be a back button. So I'm going to copy the same link, just copy this, and now let's get back to our page2.html, and I'm going to paste that over here. Let me paste it. I'm going to give some space. Okay, remove some space. Okay, let me save that. Now let's get back to our page and let's hit on refresh. Now I can see I have a back button. If I click on that, that should take me to the home page. Great, we are on the home page. Let's go to page 1, go back, and page 2, and we can go back. So this is how easy it is to create a navigation with the help of anchor text. There are two types of list when it comes for HTML. We have ordered list and then we have unordered list. Let me show you what that actually means. I'm going to create an h3 tag. I'm going to call this as ordered lists. So here what we'll do is we're going to use an OL tag. So basically that means ordered list. So inside that I'm going to specify an li. I'm going to call this as 1. Let me create 2 and say 3 and create another one called 4. So let's see how that kind of looks like inside the web page. I'm going to copy the path. Let's go to the browser, select this one, and if I hit refresh, there it is. So basically what happens here is that we have ordered list. It comes in the counting numbers. We have 1, 2, 3 like that. The same way we have unordered list. I'm going to show you how that thing works. So first thing, I'm going to create an horizontal line, and after that I'm just going to copy the entire thing and just paste it here. Now all you have to do is just change the OL to UL. So UL means unordered list. So you will have, instead of numbers, you will have like bullets over here. Okay, so let's just say you want to create nested items inside this. So you have a list, inside that you want a particular list of items. Let me show you how you can create that. I'm going to create another horizontal line. I'm going to say UL, I'll say LI, I'll say 1, and inside this I want more items. So what I can do is I can hit enter and say UL again, and inside this I can specify the list of items I need. So instead of 1, 2, 3, I'm going to say here, say bikes and cars, say trucks. Okay, and after this I'm going to get back to my normal listing. So it's going to be 2, 3, and then we have 4. Let me save this and let me show how that looks like inside the browser. If I hit refresh, you can see that's kind of nested over here. Same thing can be done with the help of ordered list also. So I'm just going to copy this one, and right below this let me create another HR tag, and inside this what we'll do is we'll just copy these items, and after the 3 here I'm just going to paste this. So now that is listed inside this. Let me save this one. Let's get back here and hit refresh. I can see how that thing looks like. A website without images really doesn't look that nice. So in this class we are going to see how you can add images into our website. To add an image, what I have done is, first thing, I have created a folder here in my lesson number 6 called images, and inside that what I have done is I've added this image called food. So if I open this, you can just check it out how that image looks like. This is the image what I have used, and what we need to do now is to display this image into our website. So what we'll do is we'll create an img tag, stands for image, and as soon as I hit tab I have this src and alt. Src stands for the source. So where is the image located? So like I said in the last class, just hold Control and hit on spacebar. You will see that there is a folder called images, and inside that we need to add the food image. So let me just save this. Now if I get back to my browser and if I hit on refresh, you can see that I have that food image. So let's just say something went wrong and we did not find the image what we're looking for. So let me just remove this one extension and let me create an error. So if I get back to my browser and if I hit on refresh, you see there's no error displayed. So we need to give some kind of message to the user that there was something there and now that image is gone. So to do that is the reason why we have the alt attribute. So what the alt attribute does is that it will give an alternative name for the image if the image is missing. For example, here I can name this as foot. And if I save this and if I get back to my browser and if I hit on refresh, you can see it shows me foot over there. Alt attributes are very famous when it comes for SEO. So let me check this out. And now when I get back my JPG extension, and if I go to my browser, if I hit refresh, you can see we have the image back as we wanted. The another way of adding an image to your website would be by using a CDN. For example, let's just say we do not have an image inside our folder, but the image is located somewhere in the internet. For example, I'm going to go to pixabay.com, and from here what we'll do is we'll take some image. For example, okay, I'm going to take this one. So if I need this image, what I will do is I'll simply right click here and I can copy the image address. Or I can open this file. If I want a larger file, I can just open this one, right click here, and I can copy the image address. So let me copy this image address. Let's get back to our code. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to create a HR tag that's a horizontal line. I'm going to say img, and inside this I'll paste this one. So now I'm going to call this as nature. So if I save this and if I get back to my browser and in my document, if I refresh, it's going to take a moment, but we'll get that. If you ever worked with Excel sheet, you might notice that it has kind of like a table structure. You have number of rows, columns, and everything. The same thing we have it in HTML. We call it as tables. Let me show you how to work with that. So let's say tables. And what we'll do is we'll specify a border for that. I'm going to set it to 1. And basically this adds an extra border for the table. Now we'll specify a tr tag that specifies the table row, and then we'll specify the th, that is the table heading. So we are going to create a simple table for a number of users available in our database. So that's going to be like a serial integer, and we'll specify another th, and we'll give this as name, and another one say th called email. The next one is going to be th as phone number. So let me save this and let's check it out how that looks like in the browser. If I hit refresh, you can see this is how it displays. Now let's get back and let's add the second row in our table. So to do that, after the tr tag ends, we'll specify another tr and we say td. td stands for table data. Now we'll specify the serial integer as 1. I'm going to duplicate that. I'm going to name this as John. And the email ID is going to be john@gmail.com. Okay, and we need a phone number, so I'm going to add some dummy phone number, say 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 and 0. Okay, so let me just copy this and paste it again, and we'll call this as 2 and we'll call this as 3. So if I save this and if I get back to my browser, if I hit refresh, you can see this is how the data displays. Now in tables we have a lot more other options which you can work with. For example, let's just say we want to merge these columns over here, what we have. So what we'll do is we'll get back to our code, and the first thing is that we want to merge 1 with everything. So we don't need to specify 2 over here. We can get rid of this 2 here and 3 2. So let's remove this. Let's get back to our browser, and if I hit refresh, you can see there'll be an extra base column which is empty. Now we need to move these items here and to merge with the 1. So you can get back to your code, and here we'll specify row span, and we need how many? 3. So that's counting 1 2 and 3. So I'll save this as 3. Let's get back here, and if I hit refresh, okay, that's 1. Okay, now we can see that we have John like around repeated many times, so we can merge this one too. So what I want to do is that I want to specify the code and the phone number. So let me get back here, and what we'll do here is we'll specify another td right after this. So I will say td, and I will call this as +91. Okay, let's just add this everywhere. So I'm just going to copy this and paste it here and then paste it here. Let me save this and let's get back to our file and hit refresh. Now what we have to do is we need to merge the this one with our phone number. So what we'll do is we'll get back to our code, and you can see here that we have a phone for the th. We'll specify as colspan and we'll set it to 2. Let's save that. We have set it to 2 because we want to merge like 2 columns. If I hit refresh, there it is merged. Forms are basically used to collect information from the user. Let me show you how to create a form. So when I type in form and I hit on tab button, you can see that we get this action thing. I'm going to get rid of this for now. I'm going to show you what that is later. So after this, what I'm going to do is inside that I'm going to type in input, type is text, and right after that I'm going to type in input, type is submit. So when I save this, basically what I have done is I have created 2 fields for the user to do something. One which collects the information, next is a submit button. So let me get back to the browser and let me hit on refresh. Now you can see that we have a input field and a submit button. So if the user types in his name and when he hits on submit button, check out what happens in the URL. If I hit on submit button, see nothing. We just get this question mark, nothing else more. Let me remove this and let me show you this again. Okay, this is how we get the file, but when you type in the name and when I hit on the submit button, see nothing happens. You just get a question mark. So basically any data which is sent from the form is sent through a URL. So let's see how we can work with that one. So let's get back to our code. In forms, we have 2 types of methods. We have a get method and we have a post method. I'm going to show you how these things work. So by default, your form is set to a get method. So we'll say method is get. So let me save this. And after this, we need to specify a name for this. So I'm going to give a name called f name. Say first name. Let me save this. And if I get back to my browser, let me remove this question mark and let's hit refresh. Okay, now I can type in my name. When I hit on submit button, you see we get the details over here. We have f name is equals to Fatah. Okay, so let me get back here and let me create a password field. What I'm going to do is I'm going to create a br tag, a line break. I'm going to type in another input. Type is a password. I'm going to give a name for this as password. Let me close this. So if I get back to my browser and let me hit refresh now, I'm going to get rid of this. Okay, so we have a name and a password. I'm going to set the username to Fatah and I'm going to set the password as 123. When I hit on submit button, check out what happens in the URL. We get the f name is equals to Fatah and the next field is actually connected with an ampersand sign. Then we have the name for the password, that is password, and then it is set to 123. But usually the password and the username has to be encrypted, right? We are not supposed to show that to the user. So what we need to do is, this is the part where we'll be using the post method. So if you set it to the post method, let me get rid of this thing now and let me try that again. So I'm going to say Fatah, I'm going to set it to 123. When I hit on submit button, see nothing happens. But when I try to refresh, I get an error message, a confirmation message actually. It says that this page seems to be having some kind of information. Do you want to continue or something like that? So I'm going to hit on cancel and instead now we'll have to hit refresh over here. Every website requires 3 different types of forms: a contact form, a login form, and a registration form. In this class, I'm going to show you how to create these 3 forms. So first, I'm going to create a contact form. So for that, let's create a form tag. I don't need any action over here. And now inside this, I'm going to create a table tag. And inside this table, let's create a tr and a tt. So here will be the name. So I'll say name, give a column, just duplicate that, and that's going to be input, type is text. I'm going to specify the name as c_name. So that will be the contact name, and we want it to be required. So the user has to fill in the data. He cannot skip it. Let's copy this one. Let's click on the next one. This is going to be email, and this will also become an email. So c email. Let's copy this one again. I'm going to set this one to a phone number. So I'm going to set this to phone. So the input type here becomes tel. and C underscore tell, and that's required too. And we need to add a subject line, so I'm just going to paste this here, and this is going to be subject. So subject is a text, so I'm going to set this as text C sub. That's required too. So the next one is the message, so I'm just going to put in some details here to call this as message. And here the input field changes, so instead of specifying input, we'll be using a text area. So we'll say text area, specify the name as C underscore mass. I don't need an ID for this right now, and we can specify how many columns and how many rows we require. So we need around like 30 columns, and 10 rows is too much, so I'm going to set it to 5. Then I'm going to copy this one here, just copy that, then let's paste it over here. And I don't need any name, so I'm going to remove this, and this will become input type as submit, and this will be C send, so the user can send the details. I'm gonna get rid of this one. So let me copy this URL now and paste it in the Google Chrome browser. Let's see how that looks like. Okay, we have a contact form. Now usually we don't want a submit button here. What we need is a send message option. Let's get back to our code, and here what we can do is we can specify a value for this. We'll call this as send message. Let me save that. If I get back to my browser and if I hit refresh, I can see that has changed to send message. Okay, now let's create a login form. I'm going to save this one. Let me close this, and I'm going to get back to the login form.html, and here let's open a form tag. I don't need any action there. Now we can specify a table, the tr td, and I'll specify this as username. Let's duplicate that, and we'll type this as input, type is text, and we can specify the name as u underscore name. Okay, we need that, so that's going to be required. So let's copy this, and then let's paste it over here, and this will be password, and the input type will be password, and the name is going to be upass. That's going to be required too. I'm just going to copy this again. Let's paste it, and we don't need any name here, so I'm going to get rid of this. So let's say input type is submit, and here I'm going to set the name as ulogin, and we can set the value as login to continue. Okay, let's save this. I'm going to copy this URL here. Let's get back to our browser and paste it. Okay, we have the username and password, but check out what happens. I'm just going to type in my username as Fatah and password as 123. When I hit on login to continue, it's kind of showing me all the details. We need to hide those things. So let's get back to this one, and here we need to set this to the method as post. And if I get back to my browser now, and let me remove all these items. Okay, so now if I type Fatah and password as 123, and if I hit on login to continue, nothing shows up. But there's a small issue. See what happens when I directly hit on login to continue. If I directly click on this, it shows me that please fill out this field. So basically we are giving a kind of validation until and unless the user fills up the data, he will not be able to continue. Now this is happening because we have the required field set in. So this is very important. Don't let the input fields empty so that the user can just send you a blank information. If you require the complete information of the user, like his email ID, phone number, his address, like for example, if you have an e-commerce website and you want to ship some of the goods to his location, you need all those information. So for that thing, we'll be using a registration form. To do that, let's create a form. I'm going to remove this action, and here we'll create a table. Say tr and td. That's going to be the name of the person, and it will be a input type as text, and I specify the name as r underscore name. That's the registration name. We need that. That's going to be required. So let me copy this. Let me paste it again, and this will be his email ID. So we'll call this as input type as email, our email. We need his email ID too. So let's copy this again, and we need a phone number. So I'm going to call this as phone. Input type is tel, and our phone. Okay, that's required too. So I'm just gonna copy this again, and then what we require is some extra information. For example, if this guy is registering, we need to set up a password for him. So we'll say password. So we'll call this as password. So this is going to be our pass. So the next thing what we require is a date of birth. So I'm just going to copy this, paste it over here. This is going to be DOB, that is date of birth, and the type will be changed to date. So we'll say our date. Let's save that. And the next one what we need is his gender. So I'm going to paste this here. I'm going to call this as gender. Now in gender we can create a group of input. So I'm going to call this as input, type is radio, and I'm going to set this one to male. Let's give a BR tag. Let's type another one called input type as radio. I'm going to set this one to female. Okay, so what we need to do here is we need to specify the same name but a different value. So we'll say name is gender. I'm going to copy the same name for this, and then we can paste it over here, and then we have to specify a different value. So we'll call this as male, and we'll call this one value as female. Okay, that should do it. Let me create a submit button and let us check how this actually looks like. So I'm just going to paste it here. I'm going to change this one to nothing. It's going to be blank, so this will be submit. So our date is going to be our reg. Okay, I'm going to remove this. We'll specify a value called register. I'm going to save that. Let's copy the URL. Let's go to our browser, select this one, and paste and refresh. Okay, so we have these details. So let me check out how this thing works. So I'm going to set the first name as Fatah, email as fathahgabriel@gmail.com, and my phone number, I'm going to set this as 1234567. Okay, password as 123, and I'm going to set my date of birth. I'm going to just select a random date, and now you can see what happens if I can select male or female. So I can choose only one. So if I hit on register, that should give me all the details I need. So see, everything is available here. Now if I scroll a little bit ahead, I should be able to get gender. Okay, we got the gender as male. That's great. So the next one what we need is a select option where we can actually select the country. So I'm just going to copy this one, then paste it over here. I'm going to set this one to country. So I'm going to set this, I'm going to remove this, and now we have a new option called select, and this is going to be our country, and we don't need an ID here, so I'm going to get rid of this, and we do require this. I'm going to set this as required, and let's specify the option. Now each and every option will have a value, so we'll say India, and we'll set this one also as India. Let me duplicate this, select this one and this one. Okay, this is going to be like USA. We can change this one to Canada and stuff like that. Let's save this. Let's get back to our browser and hit refresh. I can see that we have a drop down. Great, we have built a complete registration page. When you're working with a document or a specific product, it usually happens that you might want to group some elements. For example, I'm going to create a simple product page which is going to display me the information of a laptop. So first thing what I need is an image. So I'm going to type in img and let's hold Control and spacebar. So inside that images I have a laptop. So I'm going to give an alt tag called laptop. And now what I need is I need some additional information. For example, the name of the laptop. I can give this as dummy laptop. Actually, I'm going to change this one to a h3 tag. Okay, then I need to specify the price of that specific item. So I'm going to use the delete tag, and then the previous price for this one was around 50,000. Okay, and what is the actual price now? So I need to specify that one too. So I'm going to give a space, and then I'm going to say INS, and now the price of this laptop is around 35,000. Okay, so I have the price of the laptop. The next one what I need is a simple button which can hold that data. So I'm going to create a anchor tag. I'm going to give a hash, and I'm going to give this as buy now. Now what if I want like multiple list of products? So let me show you how this thing looks like. I'm going to click here, say copy path, and let's go to a browser, and now I'm just going to replace this. Okay, so this is my product now, but this is like okay, but what if I want like multiple products? See, this is where grouping of elements comes in part. So what I can do is I can select all this, cut it, and put it inside a div tag. So a div tag is basically a division tag. It's a block element. It's an empty element, so inside that you can add anything you like. So now I can have multiple groups of these items. So let's just say I want around 3 laptops. I can just copy and paste this. So now if I go back to my browser and hit refresh, you can see I have product 1, product 2, and then I have product 3. Basically, there are two types of media when we are working with HTML. We have video and we have audio. So I'm going to show you how to add a video inside your HTML tag. So all you have to do is just type in video. Now we do not have an source over here, so instead we have a source tag which you can add in. So inside this you can specify the src. Now hold control and hit spacebar, and you can see that we have a media folder. Inside this I'm going to choose this one. So once I select this, now you can copy this file path, and I'm going to go to the browser, just paste it over here, and then hit refresh. Okay, so we got the poster of the image. So if I have to play this video, all I have to do is right click here and then click on show controls, and then I can play the video. But the problem here is I don't want to do that. So in case if I do this, I want the controls to be available when I launch the website. So what I will do is we'll go to our code, and here all you have to do is just type in controls and save that one, and get back to your browser. Now hit refresh. Now you can see that we have the player right here. So I'm going to click on play, and you can see that video is now playing. Okay, now let's see how we can add a audio tag inside our web page. So I'm going to go back to my code. Now here right after this I'm going to use an audio tag. Now again, we do not have an src over here, so instead we need to specify the source, and inside this I'm going to specify src and hold control and hit on spacebar. I'm going to go to media and choose this audio. Let me save that. If I get back to my browser and if I hit refresh, you can see I don't see anything. That's because my controls are not available. So let me just add the controls, save this, get back to my browser. If I hit refresh, I can see that we have the audio right over here. So I can play this and I will have the audio. IFrames are basically called as infinite frames. The whole idea of using iframe is getting a completely different website which is outside to show or display into your website. I'm going to show you how to create a simple iframe. Just type in iframe and you will have these options. So we have set the frame border by default to 0. I'm going to set the source to https://www.sinformatic.com. Now many of the websites do not allow iframing their website into your website, so most of the websites are disabled. So if you try this by your own and if you don't get the result, that's completely fine. You can try this website, it usually works. And let me save this, and if I go to my browser here and if I refresh now, so we have got the other website which was loaded here. And let me get back here, and now what we can do is we can specify width and height for this. So I'm going to specify the width has to be around 500 pixels, and I want the height to be around 700 pixels. Let me save this, and if I get back to my browser and if I hit refresh, you can see that the same size will be loaded in our site. Okay, so we have got the mobile version of sinformatic.com. So there are many other websites which have iframes in their domain. For example, you have YouTube and you have Google Maps. I'm going to show you how you can integrate YouTube and Google Maps into your site too. So what we'll do is we'll create a new document over here. I'm going to call this as frames. So I'll call this as iframes, frames.html. Okay, and what we'll do is we're going to create a HTML5 document, and now first what we'll do is we'll try to integrate a YouTube video. So let me get back to the browser. I'm gonna open YouTube. Great, our YouTube is now loaded. Now you can see that there's a Mr. Bean video. Let me integrate this one. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open this. So now we have this video. What we need to do is we need to integrate this into our site. So what we'll do is we'll simply right click here and you can copy the embed code, or you can scroll down and you'll have the share button here. So let me click on the share, and you can see there's an embed option here too. So you can click on this embed. Now just copy this entire code, get back to your site and paste it here. Now that gives you a very lengthy code, but that's completely fine. You can see here it also has the width and height of that video. So let me save this, copy this path, get back here to our document. I'm going to remove this and paste with this one. The next one we'll see how we can create a Google Maps, how we can integrate Google Maps into our site. So let's go to maps.google.com. and I'm going to look for a famous place like Taj Mahal. Okay, so let's just say this Taj Mahal hotel, I want to integrate this into my site. So what we'll do is we'll click on share, and there is an embed option. You can click on this embed option, so you can see that it is showing us the Taj Mahal hotel code, and this is the iframe which we are supposed to put it in our site. Let's copy this. Let's get back to our code, and instead of this code I'm going to paste our maps. Let me save this. You can see this also has width and height predefined. You can see this, we have width and height predefined. You can change that if you want to, and this is our embed code. And let me save this. Let's get back to our browser and now to our document and refresh, and you can see now we have Google Maps in our site. HTML5 by default has a block element holder for images. It's called figure tag. Let's see how that works. So what we have to do is just type in figure, and inside that we need to specify an img tag, and this will be our source. So hold Control and spacebar, and we need to get inside this. I'm going to use then laptop as my image. I'm going to call this as laptop, and then we have a fig caption. So you can say fig caption, and inside that we can specify what is that image is all about. So you can say a simple laptop. Now I can save this, copy the path and get back to my browser. I have seen so many people have their websites, and inside their website they have a FAQ page, and each and every FAQ page have kind of like a drop down kind of thing. So they have a specific question and they answer that question inside a small box which is hidden by default. Even Google integrated the FAQ schema tag in their site. So using an FAQ page into your site has become a very important task now. So we'll see how we can create that with the help of details tag. So what we'll have to do is here I'm going to create a details tag. Okay, just open a tag called details. Okay, inside that now we need to specify the summary. So I'll say summary, and this will be a question. For example, which class is this? And then we need to specify the answer. So I'm going to use the div tag here, and whatever comes after the summary is kind of hidden. So I'm going to use the paragraph tag, say this is a HTML and CSS class. Okay, let's copy the same thing, and I'm gonna paste another one right after this. What can you do with HTML and CSS? So you can build a website. So I'll specify that you can build a website. Okay, let me save that. And what we can do now is we can copy this path. Let's go back to our browser, just paste it here and refresh. Now you can see that we have two questions which says which class is this and what can you do with HTML and CSS. If I click on this one, see it kind of dropped down, so it gives me those options. It's more like a collapsible panel, and you can switch it on and off to display the data and again hide it. We're going to use HTML5 semantic elements to create our complete web page. If you can see here, we have already downloaded some images here. So if I open this, you can see there is one image slider. If I click on this, yeah, this is my banner image, and I have downloaded two images like that. And then I have a logo which I'll be using in my site. So let me close that. And now we're going to use all the HTML5 semantic elements, and we're going to also use most of the HTML elements to create our web page. So let's get started. Let's build our site. So what we're going to do is, first thing, we're going to create a div tag to group all our content in one place. And inside that, I'm going to use a header tag. And once we create the header tag, I'm going to use a div tag again. And inside this, we are going to create a logo. So that will be my image tag. That's going to be img. And hold Control and spacebar. So we need to get our logo over there. I'm going to call this as logo. Okay, save this. Now if I copy this page path and get back to my browser, paste it and run this. Okay, we can see that we have our image, but if I click this, I need to navigate back to my home page. This is my home page currently. So I'm gonna get back over here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this and put this inside an anchor tag which connects to my page. So this is my page. Inside this, I'm going to add this. Okay, after this, I'm going to create another div tag, and inside that, I'm going to create a form tag. Now this is for my search bar, so I'm going to remove this action here, and I'm going to specify a input type is search. So this is for my search bar. I'm going to create a name for this, call this as S, and then we'll specify a input type as submit. I'm going to specify some value, so I'm going to give a value for this as just like this. Save this. Now if I get back to my browser and if I hit on refresh, you can see I have a search bar, and I can also click on this button to search whatever I'm looking for. But we need a placeholder here, so I'm going to get back to my code. In the input type search, give a placeholder. I'm going to call this as search site and 3 dots. Save that, and if I get back to my browser and hit refresh, okay, so we have the header portion. Now that we have created our elements which we require inside the head, we need another element inside the head portion, that is our navigation bar. So right after this, I'm going to create a nav tag, and inside this we'll use a UL tag, and it will have a list of items, and inside that we'll have an anchor tag. I'm gonna right now give it as hash. It's a blank tag, but we're gonna fill items when we are working on a complete website. So I'm gonna call this as home, and inside this we'll have about, and then we're going to have services. Let's create another one. We'll call this as products, and then we will have contact. Okay, I think 5 pages are more than enough. So inside the services, so when somebody clicks on the service, when they take the cursor on the service, we need around a drop down. So I'm just going to click here, and I'm going to use another UL, say li with an anchor tag hash. I'll call this as service 1. It's going to duplicate this, say call service 2. Duplicate this again, we'll call this as service 3. Just save this. If I get back to my browser and if I hit refresh, okay, that is our navigation bar. So if you can see, our header portion kind of looks very confusing because we don't know which element is going which side. So it is always a good idea to use comments inside your HTML so that you can easily understand what's going on. So this is my header, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a comment here. I'm going to call this as header. Okay, let me just copy this one, and this will be my navigation bar. Okay, so if I can select this, see everything is selected. This is my search bar, and this is my logo. So I'm just going to place this here and call this as okay. So now we know which is inside which one. So once my header portion is done, I'm going to create a section tag, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a banner inside. So we need around 2 images. We already have it here. I'm going to call this as img and hold Ctrl and spacebar. So inside images, I want the first one. I'm going to call this as banner 1. Just duplicate that, and I'm going to get rid of this, and this will be banner 2. So I'm going to save this one. If I get back to my browser, now before that, let me just add a comment here. We'll call this as banner slider. Save that. Let's get back to our browser. Now hit refresh, and you should be able to see 2 huge big images right over here. Now that our banner slider is built, we need to create the next section for holding the content. So after this header, I'm going to give a space, and again a space here, and this one we're going to create another section, and inside that section we will have an article tag. Okay, so usually inside articles you need to have a heading and a paragraph, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a main tag inside, and inside this is where I will have my heading. So I'm going to call this as lorem, and what we can do is we can choose only a little bit of the heading. We don't need the entire thing. So I'm going to get rid of all this extra text here. So let me get rid of this, and let's get back. Okay, so we have the first heading, and after this I'm going to create a paragraph. So let's call this as lorem, and I want around 2 times repeated. So let's get back, and I need to break this. So let me break this in separate lines. Okay, that's a huge paragraph, I guess. Okay, great. We have this one. So what we can do now is I can just duplicate this to get me another 2 paragraphs. So I'm just going to copy this and paste it here, and this one is just going to be the double of the size. I'm just going to paste it here. Okay, so this is my content, and let me save this. Let me get back to the browser. Let's see how that looks. If I hit refresh, if I can scroll down, you can see this is my content available in the browser. The next step for us would be to add a sidebar to our page. So if you can see this is the section which we created. So this is actually a content holder. Let me add that. I'm going to call this as content holder. Just copy this line and paste it here. Okay, and this is the content. I'll call this as content, and just copy this one and paste it here. So after the content, I need to add a sidebar. This is basically a sidebar. So what we'll do is, once we have this aside, inside that I'm going to create a div which will have a h3 tag. I'm going to call this as a widget. It can be any kind of widget, like who's the post author, or the information of when the post was posted, or the recent articles which has been posted, all those things. Okay, so let me save this, and inside this we can specify the unordered list li with an a tag. So this is the list where it comes. So I can say the articles from 2018 to 2019 2020, so more like this. Okay, so this is a sidebar, so I'm just going to name this as sidebar. Okay, just save this thing, just copy this and paste it here. Okay, so let's see how that looks like in our page. So I'll get back here, hit refresh. You can scroll down, see we have our widget. Okay, since we have added the sidebar, let me just separate this a little bit. Okay, this is my content, so I'm just gonna give a space and some space here. This is my sidebar, and this is my content. Let's create our footer. So I'm just going to give another space. So footer, you have just footer tag, and inside that we have an div tag, and inside this we will create a h3 tag. I will call this as footer menu. We don't have a menu yet, so I'm just going to give some dummy links here. So say hash, we'll call this as home, about, services, products, and then finally we have a contact thing. So basically we need around 4 footers. So I'm just going to copy this and just place this on like 3 more times. On the 4th time, like once you have this 1, 2, 3 and the 4th one, this one I'm going to change this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove this, and instead of this I will have an address tag. So inside this we can specify the header address like hash 100. I can say someplace, somewhere, far, and then we can specify the pin code like 54654. It doesn't matter. Let's save that, and after this one what we're going to do is actually we're gonna cut this one and put it inside the paragraph tag. Okay, so I'm going to add another one, and this is going to be an anchor tag. I'm going to use a mail to link, so this is going to open directly the mail over there. So say mail to, and I will say contact at someone.com. Save that, and now what we can do is we can add another one, say ahref, say tell, and I can give a column. I can give some phone number here, and the same phone number will be repeated here. Okay, let's save that. So let's see how this thing looks like in our page, but before that let me just comment this so that I would remember what that is. So this is the footer. I just copied this one, just paste it here. And if I get back to my browser and if I hit refresh, you can see I have footer menu 3 and I have the address also. I can't see the email thing, so let me get back here. So this is the email, so I'm just going to copy this, then I'm going to paste it over here. So let me save this, now hit refresh. Okay, so we have the mail option. So if I click on this, that's going to open my default email ID, that's default mail program. So I'm just going to close this. As the final piece of the puzzle, we need to specify the copyrights for our page. So what I'm going to do is right after this, I'm going to create a div, and inside that I'm going to use a paragraph tag. I'll say copyright, say ampersand copy, copy, and make sure to give a semicolon there. So it's going to be 2020, all rights reserved. Okay, I think that's enough. So you can save this. Now you can get back to your browser and you can check it out here how that looks. Okay, so we have it. So basically I want to make it a bit smaller, so what I'm going to do is we're going to cut this thing and put it inside a small tag. So if I save this, get back to the browser, and if I hit refresh, okay, that looks smaller now. There are 3 types of styles when it comes to HTML. We have inline style, internal style, and external style. In this class, I'm going to show you all the 3 different types of styles and how to use them. So let's just say that I have a div tag, and inside that I have a heading that says welcome to CSS. And now inside that we can add one more paragraph, which can be just a lorem. Okay, so what we can do now is we can let me break this so that we can get that in a multiple line. Okay, great. Okay, so let's copy this file path, and in the Chrome browser I'm just going to paste this. Okay, so we have this one. So what I want to do now is, you see this text is kind of being quite lengthy, so it's being reached almost to the edge of the browser here. So I need to cut short this to around this size somewhere so that everything can come in the paragraph style. To do that, you can see that we have a div tag here. So I'm going to write a inline style sheet to customize this. So here I'm going to click here, I'm going to type in style, and then we'll specify the width. So the width of the document which I'm creating, or the box which I'm creating, is going to be around 500 pixels. You can save that. If I go back to my browser and click on refresh, you can see now that it's well organized. We can add multiple styles inside our inline. For example, I can give the background color for that one. It can be a teal color, and if I save that, come back to my browser, and if I hit refresh, you can see that we are having some really nice background color. So let me just change the font color because it kind of doesn't match to the background. So what I'll do is I'm going to change the font color of the H3 tag and also the paragraph. So I'm going to say style color will be white. I'm going to copy the same thing and then I'm going to paste it inside this one too. So if I save this, get back to my browser, and if I hit refresh, you can see that changed. But the fonts are the default fonts, so I need to change the font styling too. So let's go back to our code, and here right after the teal, I'm going to say that the font family is going to be sans serif. Okay, let me save that, and if I get back to my browser and hit refresh, you can see that now we have beautiful fonts too. Okay, so let's work with the internal CSS. To do that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to save this file as internal.html. I'm going to change the first one to inline so that people can remember that. Okay, so we have inline and then we have now internal. So I'm going to close the inline. So there's the internal one. So let me get rid of all the styles which I wrote. So I'm going to remove all this, and I'm going to remove this one too. I'm going to remove this one too. So we have a document as we created in the beginning. So let me just copy this link now, and in the browser we just paste it and hit refresh. Okay, so our document is back to normal as it was before. Now internal CSS kind of works everything in the head portion. So you can see this head tag here. We'll be creating our internal style sheet over here. So if somebody says internal style sheet, you are supposed to add your styles inside the head tag, but after the title. Okay, never added before the title. It should be always after the title. So I'm going to say style, and inside that now we can start it. The first one which I have is a div tag. Okay, now when it comes for internal, you're supposed to add this flower braces. So in the beginning we did not add that when you're working with the inline, because inline doesn't require flower braces, but here we do. So here what we can do is first we need to specify the width. I'm going to set it to 500 pixels. You save that. If I get back to browser and if I refresh, okay, that changed. I'm going to give a background color, and that has to be in teal color, and I want the font family to be sans serif. Great. So if I get back to my browser and refresh, see, we have this one. So what we can do now is we need to change the font color. So I'm going to say that the H3 and the paragraph, both the color will be in white color. So let me save this. If I get back to my browser and hit refresh, there we have an internal CSS. Okay, so let's go ahead and save this page as external.html. So in order to work with external style sheet, what we need is we need a file, an external CSS file where we can put all our code. So to do that, I'm going to create a folder here called CSS, and inside that I'm going to create a file called style.css, and I'm going to store all my style information over here. So let's get back to our style sheet or our HTML file. You can see all the style here. Okay, let me just run this first. I'm going to copy this path and paste it over here, and let's hit enter. Okay, everything looks fine. So basically what I need to do is I can just move all of this item what I have here, just cut this and then move it to my CSS file. Now if I get back to my document here and if I refresh, see, all my style sheet is gone, all my styles are gone. So instead of writing the style tag, you will be writing a link tag. So inside the link, it is related to style sheet, and we need to link it to our CSS style.css. We save that, and if I get back to my browser and if I hit refresh, you can see my style is back. Now just to make sure that it is working, let me add some box model text to that. So I'm going to go back to my div. I'm going to add some padding, and I'm going to add it to around 15 pixels. We save that. If I get back to my browser, if I hit refresh, there we have some padding in our box. Box model is one of the most important part of the entire CSS. Box model represents how your web page actually looks and feels like. So let me show you an example. So what I have done is that I've created a CSS style. I'm going to link that, say link relative to say control and spacebar, and we have CSS and style.css. So let me create a simple box model. I'm going to create a div, and inside that let's add some lorem. Okay, so let me just move this, and in my CSS I'm going to say that div has a margin of 25 pixels. It has a padding of 15 pixels, and it has a border which is 2 pixels. It is in solid, and the color of the border is going to be orange, and I want the background color to be in crimson color, and I want the font, whatever the font inside it is, to be in white color. So let me save this, and if I get back to my document, so let me copy this path and let's get back here, paste it and hit enter. Okay, let me give some width. I'm going to go to my CSS and let's add some width. I'm going to say the width has to be around 450 pixels, and height I want it to take it automatically, so that's fine. And if I get back, okay, let me add some font family also. I'm going to add it as sans serif. Save that. If I get back to my browser and hit refresh, okay, so this is what I have. So now if I right click here and click on inspect element, you will get this developer tools. You can access this by simply right clicking and clicking on the inspect element. You can see I'm kind of inspecting the div tag, so you can directly inspect anything you like. Just right click and click on inspect, and that will get you it. So if you're doing this the first time, you will see something like this. So everything's going to be on the side, so you need to get it to the bottom. So click here and click on this one, so that's going to get it to the bottom here. I have selected my div tag. Now you can see there's a lot of highlighting going on. So if I scroll down over here, this is my box model. See, so you can see here the blue highlighting is actually my main content. This is the padding, and this is the border which I have given, and this is the margin. So basically you can say that the content here, what we have is actually the main content what you have written. Padding is basically we are increasing the size of the entire content, so we are giving some mass to it. Border is more like a skin, we are adding a edge border more like a wall, and margin is a space, it's a blank space between any object. There are multiple ways how you can identify an element inside CSS. Let me give you an example. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a div, and inside that I'm going to create a paragraph, and let's add some lorem. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take that lorem ipsum dollar thing and put that in a span tag and just paste it over here. So this doesn't change anything, it's just an inline element which we are adding it in our document. So let me save this, and now let's connect our CSS. So what I'm going to do is just type in link and hold control and spacebar, so we have the style.css. Let me open up this thing. Okay, let's get this in our browser. I'm just going to copy the path, paste it over here and hit enter. Okay, we have this thing, so let's style this so that we can start working on this directly. So the first one, how you can target an element is by directly specifying the selector name. In this case our selector name is div, so I can directly type in div, and we can open the brackets, and I can say that the width of this thing can be around 500 pixels, and I want the height to be auto. So if I do this, what happens now is that that particular div is directly targeted. See, we have this one. Now let's just say that I want to change the color of my font and also the style of the font. So what I can do now is I can get back here and I can directly target P. Okay, and here I can say that the color can be gray, and if I save this, okay, let me type in some font style. I want it to be italic. Let me save this. If I get back to my browser and if I refresh, you can see that directly targets my text. So these are the two selectors. This is like one of the way how you can use a selector as a targeting element. The another one which you can do is by specifying an ID. So for this, I can give an ID. I will call this as a box. So what happens is, instead of specifying div, this time you're going to simply specify an hash sign. Now you can see that we have a box there. So you have to say box. So save this. Let's get back to our browser. Let's hit refresh. See, nothing changes. So basically what happened is, instead of directly targeting the div tag, now we are using an ID to target the div tag. Okay, so this is one way of doing this. So let me show you how you can use classes. So let's just say I have around like multiple paragraphs. So since I've used one P here, I can directly do that. But let's just say we have around 3 paragraphs. I'm just going to copy this, paste it here and paste it here. So we have 3 paragraphs now. So if I get back and if I hit refresh, okay, we have 3 paragraphs. So instead of direct targeting all the paragraphs, I'm going to get rid of this one now. And let's create a class. I want to target only the first paragraph. Actually, I want to target the first 2 paragraphs, but the last one I want to just leave it blank. So what I can do is I can specify a class. I will call this as box text, and all I have to do is copy the same class and paste it in the next paragraph. Now I can take this text here. I can get back to this one, say dot. So classes are represented with a dot sign, and here I can say that the font style is italic and I want the font color to be in gray color. So let me save this. Let's get back to our browser and let's hit refresh. See what happened? The first 2 paragraphs changed, but the last paragraph has remained same. So let's try to modify this one too. So for this one, what we can do is we can use the nesting element to target this particular text. So what we'll do is we have a hash box. We can also type in div hash box, and inside that we have a dot box text, and inside that, actually I want to directly target this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say the color is going to be teal color. So let me save this. So basically what I'm doing, I'm going inside my box, and inside the box I have a class called box text. Let's see if that is working. Okay, we have an ID called box, and inside that we have box text. Let me get back to the browser and let's hit refresh. Okay, nothing changed. Okay, what I have done is I have directly targeted the box text. Now, instead of that, what we'll need to do is we need to target the p tags. Let me save this one. If I get back and refresh, okay, see that thing changed to teal, and a lot of other things also changed to teal. So what we need to do now is we need to specify a special class for this. I'm going to give another class, and I'm going to call this as simple text. Let me save this. I'm going to copy the simple text name, and then I'm going to paste it over here, the dot sign. Now if I get back to my browser and hit refresh, you can see that the first 2 paragraphs have remained same, but the last paragraph has changed its color. Okay, now if you can check this out, what I have done is in every text, every paragraph, I have called a span tag which specifies as lorem ipsum dollar thing. So let me show you how you can target that one. I have this div hash box. So inside this I have a dot. Actually I'm going to directly target p. That is because I have so many, around 3 paragraph tags. So inside that I have a span tag. So what we'll do is I'll say that the font weight is bold, and I want the color of that one should be in black color. So if I do this, what happens is every first 3 words of the paragraphs is going to change. So let me refresh. You can see that every first 3 paragraph, every first 3 letters of the paragraphs have now changed. Let's create a really simple box model with the help of CSS. So I'm inside my document. I'm going to create a div. I'm say dot box. That's going to create the class over there, and inside that let me add some dummy text. So if I add this, let me copy the path. Let's get back to the browser. Let's refresh. Okay, so we have the document here. Now we need to make this look really nice. So let's get back to our code. And now what we need to do is we need to get back to our CSS. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to target the box. So I'm using a class over there. You can see that I'm using a class, and inside this, the first thing is I'm going to specify width. I'm going to set the width to around 500 pixels. I'm going to set the height as auto. So if I do this much, you can see that it automatically adds me some width. Now what we can do is we can start adding some more styles for this. Let's add the box model. I'm going to set the margin as 25 pixels, and I'm going to say that the padding is going to be 15 pixels. Let's give a background color. I'm going to give a background color which looks kind of nice. So let me look for a really good background color here. Okay, I'm going to use the teal color as my background, and if I save this, get back to my browser, let's hit refresh, you can see that it has created some style. So what we'll do is we will create some font family here. I'm going to call that as sans serif, and I will say font size is going to be small. We save that. Let's see how that looks like. Okay, that looks good. I need to change the font color. I'm going to change the font color to white. So if I save this and get back my browser and hit refresh, okay, that's white. But you can see that the line height is very close to each other. I need to give some line height. So I'm going to say line height. I'll give this as around 1 em. Let's see what makes that. Let's hit refresh. Okay, that kind of compressed it. So we need to increase more line height. So if I set it to 2, I think 2 is too much. So I'm going to set this to 1.5 or 8. I think 1.8 is good. So let me get back to my code. I'm going to set this to 1.8. Save that. Let's get back to our browser. Let's hit refresh. Okay, it's here. Now we need to add some border for that. I'm going to add a border. I'm going to set that to around 3 pixels. It's going to be solid, and we want the color to be in orange color. So if I save this, get back to my browser and refresh, you can see that we have some really nice border here. But the border is kind of very sharp, so we need to make it more a bit of a rounded corner. So let's get back to our code. I'm going to say the border radius should be around 5 pixels. So if I save this and get back to my code and hit refresh, you can see that kind of created a small curve over there. We can also give shadow for this specific box with the help of CSS. So what we can do is here we can specify that the box shadow is basically like x-axis, y-axis, and all those things. So I'm gonna set this to 2 pixel x-axis, 2 pixel y-axis, and here now we want to set the blur radius. I'm going to set this to around 12 pixel, and the color of the blur right now I'll set it to black just for the demo, and I'll get back here and let's hit refresh. Okay, you see now we have that box shadow over there. So let's move that a little bit down. So to do that, you can see this is the x-axis. So if I increase this, see what happens, it's moving to the other side. So I'm going to set this to around 12, and I think I'll set this one also to 12. Okay, this is great. And I'm going to set the blur radius to around 24. Actually around 20 is fine, I guess. Now black is really too thick, so I'm going to decrease the opacity. Just click on this color here and you can see this line. So you can just click on this, that will change to RGBA value. We need this. So I'm going to decrease the opacity here, that which makes kind of look good. So I'm going to select this much is good. And now let's select our entire box shadow. I'm going to copy that. Let's get back to our code, and instead of this, we're going to paste our code. Okay, we have an extra one here, so let's remove that. Save this. Let's get back to our browser. Let's hit refresh. See, we have a really beautiful box model. Hey guys, in this class we are going to build the complete website. So we're going to use this particular template which we created in our previous class. We're going to use this to build our complete website. So right now this is just the home page, but when we are working with this, we're going to add some new elements, new pages, and a lot of other things for this, and we're going to extend this to a much more next level. Okay, to get started, what I have done is in my VS Code, I have opened that my document. I've just copied it and I've named it as lesson 2, and I have the same images and I have the same document which I used. So now if you can check this out, there's nothing much. So right click here and open the inspect element. Let's scroll back. Okay, so I need to work step by step. So let's create our style step by step and start working on this one. Let's go to the code, and what we'll do now is that inside this one I'm going to create a folder called CSS, and inside this let me create a file called style.css. Okay, I need to link that file to my document now, so I'm going to type in link is related to css style.css. Okay, so I need to check whether this thing is working or not. The first thing what I'm going to do is I'm going to set the body, entire body, I'm going to set the margin as 0 space auto. So basically this thing works in a clockwise. So 0, if I use the values like 0 5 0 5, then basically it's gonna be like margin top is 0, margin right is 5, margin bottom is 0, and margin left is 5. So using margin 0 space auto is basically you're setting top and bottom to the 0, and left and right is gonna be auto. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to set the background color. I'm going to set it to Gainsborough. So let me save this. Let's see if this works. I'm going to get back to my page and hit refresh. Okay, the color changed, and also there was some extra space here that kind of moved. That means my page is now in a working condition. Okay, so let's check out like what are the things we need to add. So I'm going to open my developer tools, and inside this you can see the first one which I have here is a div tag. So I need to specify some kind of ID or a class for this through which I can target my entire website. So let's get back to our code. Now inside the HTML you can see that I have this div. I'm going to give a class for this. I'm going to call this as the container. So because this is the main container which is going to hold each and every element of my web page. I'm just going to copy this. Let's go to our style, say dot container. I'm going to open this one. I'm going to set the width to around 1000 pixels. I'm going to set the height to auto. So if I save this, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to add the background color to white color. Let's save this. Let's get back to our browser and let's hit refresh. See what happens. See, we kind of actually got what we were looking for. We have got the layout, which is actually storing the entire contents inside just 1000 pixels. Now the problem here is it is aligned to the left side, so basically we want it in center. So there's a trick which you can try. So let's go to this container. You can see which I have written here. I'm going to say that the margin left should be auto. So if I do this, it's going to move to the right side, but when I say margin right has to be auto, now it doesn't have anywhere to go. It cannot go to the left, it can go to the right, so it's going to be in center. So there's an easy method to do this. Instead of doing all this, all you have to do is simply say margin as auto. So this will basically apply on all the sites as and set it as auto. So let's get back to the code. Let's do that. I'm going to add this as margin auto. Okay, save this one. Let's get back to our page. Let's hit refresh. Now you can see it's been saved. Okay, now that our container is built, now we can start directly working on our web page. Let's get back to our code. Now if you can check this out, here in this we have a header. So we have a header, and that header kind of comes till here. So inside that we have a logo, then we have a search form. So what we'll do is first we'll target this logo and the search form. That's because in my layout what I need is I need the logo to be on the left and I want the search bar to be on the right side. Let's see how we can do that. So first thing, I need to create a class for this. So this is the logo. I'm going to give a class and I'm going to name this as logo. Let me save that. The same thing I'm going to do that with the search bar also. So I'm going to give a class. I'm going to call this as search. Let me save that. Let's get back to those styles and we'll say dot logo. So now what I need is that I want this over here and I want this to be on the right side. So for the logo, right now I don't have to do anything, but let's add it for some search. So I'm just gonna go back to my code and let's see if I did some spelling mistake. Okay, so let me just paste it here. Okay, that's a search thing. So all I have to do is just type in float, and I want to float it to the right side. So if I save this and if I get back in, if I hit refresh, see what happened. We got the search bar on the right side, but it's not where I want it. It's kind of below my logo. So why is it happening? So let's open our header here and you can check that out, the logo. So if you take my cursor over here, you can see it's taking the entire 1000 pixels width. It is taking the entire size of my document. And same goes for the search, but search, since I gave float left, it is taking only the area which we have given it to him. So by default it's automatic, so the search bar and the button together, whatever the size they have taken, it is taking that size. But check out the logo. So what I need to do is I need to make the logo a bit smaller. So first thing what we can do is, if you don't know the width of the logo, you can simply go to this logo here and type in float to the left. So if I save this, if I get back here and if I hit refresh, okay, so we got the logo to the left and we got the search bar to the right. But there's a lot of issue here. What's happening is my entire my navigation bar is kind of in the middle of the GWSSD logo and also the search bar. So I need to break this. So basically what's happening is our logo and our search bar both are kind of floating. So we have to stop the floating first in order to get further. So what we'll do is we'll create a class here to stop the floating. I'm going to call this as .clearFX. And all this does is it's going to clear on both sides. So let me select this one. After the search bar, I'm going to create a div called .clearFX and save that. If I get back to my browser, if I hit on refresh, you can see that kind of looks better now. We need some spacing to the logo and also we need some spacing on the search bar. So what we can do now is you can get back to our styles here. You can see we have some we have written the logo in the search bar. Just hold Alt and I'm going to write in multi-line. I'm going to say that the padding is going to be around 15 pixels. Let me save this. If I get back here and if I hit refresh, okay, I think that much spacing looks fine. Okay, now that we have built the header, the next part would be to create the navigation bar. I can check this out here. My logo and search bar is ready. We have added a clearFX. The next one is need to work on the navigation bar. The first thing is I'll change the background color of that. So let me get back to the code, and inside this you can check it out that I have a nav. So what we'll do is we'll specify a class for this. I'll call this as main menu and let me save this. I'm going to take this main menu class and go to my CSS and add it here called main menu. I'm going to set the background color to teal color. We save that. Now if I get back to my browser and if I hit on refresh, you can see my entire navigation bar which I'm supposed to build is in teal color now. But there's an issue. Why do we have so much space here? So what you can do is you can just open this up. You can see that we have a unordered list, that is UL over here. If I select this, we have some highlighting going on. You can see there's green, blue, and the orange. This is a box model. So if we can scroll down in the UL, you can see that we have a 40 pixel padding on the left, and then we have a top and bottom 16 pixels margin. So we need to get rid of that one. So what we'll do is we'll get back to our code and we'll select this main menu, and inside this we have UL, and I'm going to say that the margin has to be 0 pixels and the padding has to be 0 pixels. So if I do this, now if I get back to my browser and if I hit refresh, see that thing goes away. But we still have these bullets. We need to get rid of these bullets now. So what we'll do is we'll also say here that the list style type is going to be none. We don't want any kind of styling over there. So if I hit refresh, that's going to go away. Now the next one what I have is the li. So basically li is a list item. It acts like a block element. It's taking the entire size of my container. So the first thing I would have to do is I'd have to make it stop doing that. So let's get back to our code, and you can see this. Just copy this line. So basically we are saying that inside main menu we have UL, and inside that UL we have a li. Actually we have multiple li, and here we're going to say to display as inline block. Let me save this, and if I get back to my browser and if I hit refresh, okay, see now they are coming one beside the other, only the service is kind of hanging like this. Okay, I need to increase the spacing of this. I need to change the color, and I have to do a lot of things. Now it's in this color, that's because of the anchor tag which is wrapped around it. So we need to target the anchor tag now. So let's get back here, and I'm going to copy this entire thing and I'm going to paste it here, and inside this we have an anchor tag. I'm going to change the color to white. I'm going to say that the text decoration is going to be none. Save that. Let's see how that is coming out. If I refresh, yes, it's coming out really well. So let's get back to our code, and what we'll do here is I'm going to call this as display block, and I will say that the padding has to be around 15 pixels. I'll set that the background color, actually I don't need a background color over here right now, so let me save this. If I get back to my browser and hit refresh, okay, that looks good. We need to change the font though. So here we're going to say that the font family is going to be sans serif, and I want the font size to be smaller. Let me save this, and if I get back to my browser and refresh, okay, that looks good. Now what I want is when I take my cursor here, I want the background color of this each and every item to change. So this specific function is actually called a pseudo element. So I'm going to take this anchor tag here and I'm going to paste it here. So I'm going to add this hover with the column, and I'm going to say that when I hover this, I want the background color to be in orange. Let me save that in my browser. If I hit refresh and if I take my cursor, you can see that the background color changes. Now that we have built our nav bar, now we need to work with our drop down menu. We can check this out. We have the home, about, services, product, and contact, but the services has a drop down, but it doesn't come out. We need to get this thing out, and it should only be visible when I take my cursor on the services. Let's see how to create that in this class. Let's get back to our code. So now you can go to your index.html. You can see that we have the URL tag, and this is where my drop down menu is. So what we'll do is we'll specify a class for this. I'm going to call this as drop. We'll select this one. I'm going to select this. Let's go to our CSS. Now you can see that our drop menu has this bullets over here. We need to get rid of that one. So what we'll do is we'll create a comment here. I'm going to call this as drop, and inside this I will say that the dot drop list style type is none. It doesn't have a margin and it doesn't have a padding, so I'm going to remove all those items from there. Let's hit refresh. Okay, that kind of came out, but we need to get this out of this place. So let's get back to our code, and here I'm going to specify position as absolute. Save that, and if I go back to my browser and if I refresh, you can see that is outside now and our navigation bar looks beautiful. Now we need to style these items. So let's get back to this page, and since we have a drop, this is the URL tag, and inside this we have a li, and inside that we have an anchor tag. So what I'm going to do is I have already written a lot of styles here. I'm just going to copy these items and then I'm going to paste it here. So the first thing what I'll be doing here is I'm going to add a background color as black color. We save that, and if I go back to my browser and if I refresh, you can see now that has a really beautiful look. So when I take my cursor, just like these things, I want the drop down menu also to be highlighted. Let's get back to our code. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this, paste it here. I'm going to say when I hover this, I want the background color to be in orange color. Let me save that. If I get back to my browser, let's hit refresh. You can see that now it's highlighting, but we don't want this to be appearing here. We want it to only appear when I take my cursor on the services. Let's get back to our code. You can see this is the drop. What I'm going to do is I'm going to say display as none. So basically it's going to hide. So if I go to my browser and hit refresh, you can see that's gone. So when I come here, when I reach services, I want the drop down to appear, right? So for that, what we're going to do is we're going to take these items here. Just copy this one, scroll down and just paste it here. So when I hover here, I want the dot drop to display as block. So basically this is going to convert the element which I have hidden and it's going to display it as block. Let's see if it works. Let's get back to the browser. Let's hit refresh. We have home, about, and services. Okay, our drop down menu works. You can see that the banner slider images are kind of outside the container, and I'm getting the scroll bar So basically in the web design field, if you get a horizontal scroll bar, that's not a good thing. So what we'll do now is we'll make them fit within our container, and then we're going to create the slideshow. So let's get back to our code. And if I scroll down, this is my slideshow. I'm going to give a class and call that as banner. Let me save that and let me close this one. Okay, I don't need this. So I'm going to select this banner class and get back to our styles, and here I'm going to say banner. Say dot banner, and here I can specify the width. I can specify the width can be 1000 pixels, that is the exact width of the container, and the height I'm going to set it to auto. I'm going to set that one. Okay, so now what I need is inside the dot banner I have img, that's my image. I'm going to set the width of that image to 100%. Okay, and the height I'm going to set it to auto. Let me save that. If I get back to my browser and if I hit refresh, you can see now that images are kind of fitting inside this. So let me inspect this. Let's see what is the size of the image which we have chosen. So if I select this one, so if I can select my image here, it shows that is 1200 by 500, but what I need is the actual size in the browser. So if I select my image over here, you can see it says 1000 by 416. I'm going to set it to that much. So here I'm going to set the height to 416.66 pixels. Just save that and let's get back here. Let's hit refresh. I can see my text is kind of overlapping the image. That's because the width and height of the image are fixed and the text is now overlapping. So we need to fix that one. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to say overflow. Anything that is coming outside the div is going to be hidden. So let me save that. Let's get back to our browser and hit refresh. Okay, you can see now that we don't see the other image coming out. So what we need to do now is we need to create a slideshow here. So this should be moving. So to do that, what we'll do is we'll go to the next tab and in Google look for jQuery cycle 2. The latest version is 2, and in this one you can go to get started, and you can see that there are 2 links here. So just copy these 2 links, and in your code in the index.html just go to the footer part, and before the body tag closes, paste these 2 links. Now what we have to do is we just have to call this cycle slideshow inside our banner. So I can get back to my banner here, and right beside it I'm going to call this one. So let's get back to our browser. Let's hit refresh. Let's see if it works. Yes, our slideshow works. But there's a small issue. See, my navigation bar now doesn't show the drop down. So drop down kind of appears only when the slide happens. So basically what's happening is the slideshow has the higher value of z index. So I need to make sure that my drop down also has the higher value of z index. Let's get back here. In my style.css, you can see that we have a drop here, and drop class I'm going to set z index as 999 and save that. Let's get back to browser. Let's hit refresh. Now if I take my cursor, okay, we have our drop down and our slideshow. Our content holder includes 2 parts. We have the main content, then we have the widget. Let's get back to our code and let's see how we can organize them. So this is our main content. I'm going to give a class for this. Let's call this as content, and after that I have the sidebar. I'm going to give a class for this. I'm going to call this as sidebar. Let's save that. Now let's start styling directly for the content holder. I'm going to give a class for this one too. So class content holder. Okay, so let's copy this content holder here, and in our style.css I'm going to create a comment content holder. Okay, so inside this, say content holder, I want the background color to be Let's select a color. Okay, royal blue. I'm going to select this one. So if I get back to my browser and if I hit refresh, you can see that everything changes now. Okay, but we have some spacing here. So let's right click and click on inspect. Let's see what is that. That is the margin of the H1. So we need to work with that one too. So let's get back to our code. And now that I have had that, so what I can do is I can directly go to content. I can select this one in my style dot content. I'm going to specify the width. See, my container size is 1000 pixels, so I'm gonna make it like 75% and 25% of the sidebar, and 75% will be my content. So I'm going to set this as width. So I'm going to set it to 700 pixels, and I'm gonna put the height as auto, and let's give a padding of 25 pixels. I'm going to give a background color to white color. Let's save that. If I go back to my browser and hit refresh, now you can see that we have a nice place to display our content. Let's get back to the code, and what we'll do is I'm going to select this content here. I'm going to say that inside this I have a H1. I want the font size to be around 1.5 em. Save that. Let's get back and refresh. Okay, that looks a bit big, and now I can change the font family as sans serif. Save that, and if I get back to browser, okay, that is looking good. Now I need to customize my main content, so I'm just going to copy this, and inside this I have P. So I'm going to say font family is sans serif, and I want the font size to be small. Save that, get back to the browser, hit refresh. Okay, that is looking good. Now what we need to do is we need to set the sidebar on our right hand side. Now that we have got the content, let's create our sidebar. Let's get back to the code, and here what I have done is I've added a sidebar class. Let's say take that one and let's just paste it over here. Now you can see what is happening is my content here is actually still acting like a block element, so it's taking the entire size. I need to float that. So let's get back to our content, which is over here. I'm going to say it has to float to the left. If I get back to the browser, hit refresh, see now we don't see our entire background. So that's because since the element is floating here. So what we can do is we can specify float left here too for the sidebar, so that also is going to float right beside it. But now my footer menu is overlapping on my sidebar, so I need to get that down. So to do that, what we can do is we have already done it actually in the logo section. So if I get back here, you can see that I have used a clear fix. I'm just going to copy that and get back to my content here, and this is my sidebar, and right after that sidebar I'm going to paste this. And if I go back to my browser and hit refresh, okay, problem solved. Now what we need to do is we need to make this look more nice. So let's inspect this. This is my sidebar. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add some padding around 25 pixels. See, I have not given any width for this, so it's taking the width automatically over there. And let me copy this thing and let me just paste it over here. Okay, my sidebar part is ready. So inside this sidebar I have an H3. So you can see that H3 is here. I'm going to change some font style for that. So font family is going to be sans serif, and I want the color of the font to be in white color. And inside that sidebar we also have an unordered list. So I have already written some style for the unordered list while I was creating this one. So I'm going to copy this. Let's get back to our code and paste it here. And if I get back to my page, hit refresh, you can see we have some styling. So we need to give some spacing for these items now. So let's get back to our code. So I'm going to take this one. So basically what's happening is inside this I have li, and inside that I have an anchor tag. I'm going to call this as display block, say margin bottom as 5 pixels. I'm going to change the color to white. I'll say that the font family is serif, that's fine. I'll say font style to be italic, and text decoration should be none. Save that, and if I get back to the browser, hit refresh, okay, that looks pretty good. Now the next part would be to work on the footer. Okay, we have built our content and the sidebar, so let's get started with the footer. So if we can scroll down here, you can see that we have this footer option, and this is what we need to style. Let's get back to our code and let's navigate to our footer. This is our footer. I'm going to give a class here. I'm going to call this as main footer. Let me save that. Let's copy this line and then let's go to CSS and let's add it. I'm going to say that the background color is going to be black. Let me save that. If I get back to browser, hit refresh, okay, we have it, but we don't see most of our content. So what we can do is we can specify that the color is in white color. Save that. Let's get back to the browser, refresh. Okay, that's looking good. Now the thing is I need to specify the width and the padding for my footer. So what we'll do is we're gonna specify that the width is 950 pixels. That's because I'm using padding as 25 pixels. So basically if I directly say padding as 25 pixels, it will be added all the 4 sides, and that is how we can do the calculation. So let me show you how the thing works. If I get back to the browser and refresh, see, this thing doesn't come out. So if I select my footer here, so the exact size now, the width is 1000 pixels, but here it shows 950. See what happens if I change it to 1000 pixels over here. So it came outside. That's because I've added the padding here. So you can go to this padding, you can see we have padding on all the 4 sides, including the left and the right side. So now what I have done is I set it to 950 pixels. So 25 on the left and 25 on the right will add it to 50, and we have 950 plus 50 as 1000. Okay, after this we have this div tag which we need to float them beside each other. So let's get back here, and what we're going to do is we're going to create a class. I'm going to do the multi-line editing here. I'm going to choose this. You can do this by holding the alt key. Select this. I'm going to call this with a class. I'll call this footer box. Okay, so let's select the footer box which I have here. Then okay, so we need to do a little bit of calculation. So we have 950. So let's open up our calculator. Okay, the width what we have is 950, and we want to divide that by 4. So we have 237.5 pixel is what we require for each and every box. So I'm going to set this with a width of 237.5 pixels. Height is going to be auto, and it's going to float to the left side. So if I get back to the browser and if I refresh, okay, so this is happening. Now this is happening because the items are now floating, and we need to clear fix this. So let's get back to our HTML and then look for the clear fix. I'm going to copy this one, and after the footer ends, so let me get back here. Okay, right after this I'm going to paste this. Get back to the browser, now hit refresh. Okay, that is looking okay. Now we need to change some of the font styles over here. Let me get back to the code, and what we can do here is we can specify that the font size, font family, we can specify that the font family is sans serif. And if I get back to the browser and hit refresh, okay, we have that one. Now we have to change and work on this thing. Let's get back to the code. Inside the footer box we have the UL. So what we're going to do now is we have already written some code just like this. I'm going to take that code, so that's over here. So I'm going to take these items, copy that, get back to my code, and paste it. So now if I refresh, that's gonna get rid of all the bullets there. So now I need to style these items. So what we'll do is we're gonna take this one now, and inside this we have an ELI, and then we have an anchor tag. I'm going to call this as display block with the font size as small, margin bottom I'm going to give it as 5 pixels. Let's save that. I'm going to change the color to white color. Okay, let's see how that looks like. Great, now all I have to do is remove this underline. So I'm going to get back to my code. Let's say text decoration is none. Save that. Let's hit refresh. Okay, that looks good, but things have not changed much over here. So let me get back to this one. And what we're going to be doing now is inside the address, I'm going to add a h3. I'm going to call this as company name. Let me save this. Let's check how that looks like. Okay, we got the company name. We need to change these items now. So what we'll do is we're going to give a ph symbol over there. Okay, what we'll do is we'll get this outside over here. Yeah, I'm gonna give this one as email. Okay, so we have got almost of the things, and now we have to change this one. So what we have to do is we have to take this footer box, and inside the footer box we have the address tag, and inside that we have anchors. I'm going to change the color of that to teal color. I'm going to change the font size as small. Let's save that. Let's see how that looks like if I hit refresh. Okay, that is looking okay, and now I need to change the color of that one. So I'm going to change this, but I don't think this changed. So what happened here is that we have this one, you have the address, you have the footer, and then you have the anchor tag. Okay, so I need to get rid of these items because they are not directly inside, they are kind of nested inside. I'm going to save this one. Let's hit refresh now. Okay, that changed. I can change the address tags item also, so I'm going to change it to font size as small. Save that and get back and hit refresh. Okay, that is looking good, and I don't want the h3 to change. So what we'll do is inside this one I'm gonna set it to 4p, so only the paragraphs will be changed. Okay, that is looking good. And now that I have got this one, the only thing now left us to work with is the copyright section. So if I inspect this, you can see that it's a paragraph tag, it has some margin, and based on that everything's been added. So what we can do is we can get back here. I'm going to add a class for this. I'll call this as copy. Now select that copy name and then paste it here. I'll say that the font size is small. It's actually already small, so I'm just going to say that the font family is sans serif. Let's see how that looks like. So if I get back and refresh, okay, that is fine. And what we'll do is we'll specify a padding of 25 pixels. That's going to give some spacing over here, and I want that to align to the center. So text align center. Let's save that. Hit refresh. Okay, it's in center. I want to change the background color now. So you can set the background color to crimson color. I change the font color to white. Save that. Now if I get back here and refresh, okay, we have it. But you see there's a lot of spacing going on. So what we can do is inside that copy we have a P, and for that P I'm gonna set the margin as 0 pixel. That should fix it. So if I hit refresh, great, that did fix it. So now you can see our complete website, or I could say web page, is ready. Now that we have built our web page, let me show you how you can create an about us page for our website. Let's get to our code, and you can see that we have this index.html, and all you have to do is go to file, save as, and I'm going to save this page as about us. that's it. So we have the about us page. Now the only thing is, if I go back to my page here, let me remove this, and you can see our about us page is here. Let me click on this one. Okay, so this is our about page now. So this is what we are going to customize it to look like, our about page. The first thing is I don't need this slider in my about page. So get back to our about page, and I'm going to remove this slider. Okay, let me save that and get back to the browser, hit refresh. Okay, that is gone, and we need some image over here. I have already got some images for my about page and services page. So you can see there's an about.jpg. I'm going to add that. So right after this paragraph here, I'm going to add that, say img, and hold Control and spacebar. So I'm going to go inside the images, and we have about, and I'm going to add an alt attributes, say about us, save that, and get back to your browser and hit refresh. See, what happened is now your image is quite large for the website, so it's kind of coming outside. So we need to fix this. So let's get back to our page. You can see this is the content. Just copy that. Now what we'll do is, here we'll create a comment called page, and inside that we'll say inside dot content. If the img comes, we will set the max width to 100%. Now make sure that you don't set it to directly width, so that will simply take smaller images to 100% width. So we want the smaller images to be smaller and the larger images to fit. So I'm going to save this. Let's get back to our page. Now hit refresh. Okay, that is fit over there. So we have our about us page. Now that we have built our about us page, let's create our services page. So if I go to my services, you can see we have service 1, 2, and 3. So we need something similar like that. So what I have done is I have added the service images over here. We have 1, 2, 3 services. I'm going to add that in our page. So let's get back to our about us page. I'm going to save this as, and I'm going to create a folder here. I'm going to call this as services, and inside that I'm going to call this as service1.html, and I'm going to save another one, call this as service2.html, and the third one is going to be service3.html. So we have 3 services here. You can see this one. So let's get to the first one, and what we'll do now is, instead of this image what we have here, we are going to add our service image. So now the thing is, I can't target my image. So see, if I hold Control and spacebar, it just shows me the images or the pages what I have it in my site. So what I need is, I need to get outside this folder. So // will get me out, and I'm going to choose images here, and from here we'll choose service1, and I'm going to change this to service1. You can save that. Let's get back to our page. Now I can remove this. You will find a folder here called services. I'm going to open that. So we have service1. So I can click on this. Okay, now my styles are dead too. You can see most of my style is gone. My images are gone. So we have to fix that one. So let's get inside this, and all we have to do is put a // so that will get into our CSS. And same thing I need to do with my home page, say // and I need to do the same thing with my logo, so // okay. So let's see if that works. Let's get back and hit refresh. Okay, that worked. So that is my service1. And now, since I have already saved my service3 and service2, so I'm going to do that one with that other pages too. So I select this service2. I'm going to change this to // I'm going to change this one to // and same goes for the images too, // and what else do we have? Okay, we have this image here, so I'm going to remove this, say // to get inside the images. So this service2, so save that, and let's get back to our page. I'm going to refresh and select service2. Okay, our service2 page looks fine, and let's try the same thing with our service3. I'm going to click // and same thing goes with this one, and the logo, and the only thing left now is our image, dot slash, and I have to choose service 3 and name this as service 3. Save that, and if I go to service 2, I have to change this one to service 2. Save that one. Let's go to our folder again. Let's click on service 3, and we have our service 3 also working fine. Okay, now that we have built our services page, let's create our products page. So if you go to your browser and click on the products, we do not have a products page yet, but we have built the service 3 page. So what we'll do is we're going to go to our about us page template here, save this page as, and I'm going to create a page called products. Okay, so that's created. Let's get back here. I'm going to remove this, and let's go to a products tab. Okay, so this is what we have. So what I want here is I want a list of products here. So let's get back to the code, and what I'm going to do now is I'm going to get rid of a little bit of paragraph, like around this much, so I can get rid of that, and let me remove this image and this paragraph. So this is the main content which I have, and I'm going to build everything within this. Okay, so this is what I have. So since a paragraph is a block element, I can directly create my product over here. So I'm going to add around 3 products in my page. So let me get back here, and you can see this. I'm going to create a div called products list. Okay, and inside this I'm going to create another div. I'm going to call this as product, and inside this I will have an img tag. Let's hold control and spacebar, and we have images, and I want this laptop over here. I'm going to call this laptop, and once I have this one, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create another div here. I'll call this as product caption. Inside this I'm going to create a paragraph tag which specify the product name, and then we'll specify the product price. I'm going to set this one to del tag. We'll say 50,000. Okay, and now we have a new price, that is INS, and that is 25,000. Okay, next I need an anchor tag, and here I'll give this as buy now. Let me save this. So if I go back to my browser and hit refresh, you can see this is my product, and my entire idea right now is to style this. Okay, let's create some more of it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take this product which is inside the product list and copy this and paste it here and here. So I have it like around 3 times now, and let me refresh. Okay, there it is. Now we need to target this. So let's inspect this. Let's see what is the document size we have inside, and this is my main tag. So basically my main tag is 700 pixels wide. So let me open a calculator, and I'm going to calculate this. So 700, and I want 3 products inside this. That's going to be 233.33. So I'm just going to copy this till here, copy this, and now you can see that I have a product div, right? So let's go to our CSS now, and here I'm going to type in, say product, say dot product. I'm going to say that the width is 233.33 pixels, height is auto, and I want this to float to the left. So if I do this much, I should be getting 3 products all aligned side by side. Okay, let me add some border to that so that it can look a little bit nice. I'm going to say border as 1 pixel solid black. Let's save that. Let's get back to the browser and let's hit refresh. Okay, see, this thing happened. Now since I have added 1 pixel border, so I need to remove 2 pixels from here. So this becomes 231.33. So let me just refresh now. That should come side by side again. So look, it looks kind of very close to each other. So I'm going to give some margin here. I'm going to say the margin should be around 5 pixels apart. So let me hit save and refresh. Okay, this thing is happening. Again, we need to minus around 5 pixel on the left and 5 pixel on the right. That is like 10 pixels. So this becomes 221.33 pixels. So let me just hit refresh now. Okay, we have the boxes lined up together, but see, the text is quite closer to each other, so we need to give some spacing inside, so that would be padding. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add padding as 5 pixels. Let me save that and let's hit refresh. Okay, we have the padding, but again this thing has come down, so now we need to minus 10 pixels again. This becomes 211.33 pixels. So let's refresh and that looks good. Now we can style this. What I can do is I can inspect this one. You can see that's my paragraph here. So this is the content P, but I have a product caption. So I can select the product caption, and inside that I have a paragraph tag. So for this one, I'm going to say the font weight is bold. So everything becomes bold there. I'm going to select this thing, copy that, and then paste it in my style sheet. Let me go back here and refresh. Okay, that looks good. Now the deleted one is going to be in red and this is going to be in green. So let's do that one. So if I open this link here and see the DEL is actually normal, so I'm just going to change this color. Yeah, so I want this one inside the product caption. So let me select this and add this one, and inside this I have DEL. So for this one I want the color to be in red. Okay, that's in red. I'm going to copy this now. Let's get back to our code and paste it. Okay, the same thing I'm gonna do for my INS, that is the inserted price. So INS, and this will be green. So I'm just going to remove this. Yeah. So if I save this, come back here and hit refresh. Okay, I need to customize my buy button. So what I'm going to do now is there is only one anchor tag inside the product caption. Let's get back to our code. Let me just take this one now, and I have an anchor tag. I will call this as display block, and this will be background color as teal color. Let's see how that looks like. Okay, that's looking good. And I want the padding to be around 8 pixels. Let's see how that one will look like. Okay, that is actually looking good. So what we'll do now is we'll say text align to center, and I'm going to say that the color is going to be white, and I want the font family to be sans serif and the font size to be small. Save that one. Let's get back here and hit refresh. Okay, I just need to remove the underline now, so I'm going to say text decoration as none. Save this. Let's get back here and refresh. Okay, we have the buy now button. When I take my cursor, I want to change the color, so I'm going to take this anchor tag here. I'm going to add a pseudo class, say hover. I want the background color to be orange color. Let me save this. Let's get back here, hit refresh. Great, we have the products page ready. Okay, now the only page left for us to build is the contact page. So let's build that. So let's get back to our code, and now you can see here we have our CSS. I'm going to use my about us page to create the contact form. So I'm just going to save this as contact us.html. Okay, so what I'm going to do is whatever comes here, I'm going to get rid of this one. And okay, let this be, and I'm going to keep this much. Let me remove this. Okay, I don't need the image and I don't need this, so I'm going to get rid of this one. Save this. Now if I get back here and click on refresh, okay, I need to navigate to my contact page. Let's go to contactus.html. okay, this is our page. Now what we can do is that after the header, if you remember, we created a banner, right? So we can go to our home page. You can see this is our banner. I'm going to copy this, get to a contact us page, paste it here, and I'm going to remove this cycle slideshow, and I'm also going to remove the images inside this. And instead of this banner slider, I'm going to call this as Google Maps. Save that. Now if I get to my browser and hit refresh, you can see I have such a big blank space here. This is where I will be adding my Google Maps. Let's go to maps.google.com. Okay, I'm going to look for Google's office. Wow, there are so many Google's office here. So let's look for Google India, and let's click on share, embed map. I'm going to copy this and get back to our code, and inside this is where I'm going to add my code. So save this. As you see, we have some width and height. I'm going to get rid of this. I don't need this. Okay, save this thing. So let's scroll up and you can see this is the iframe what I have used. But remove this, save this one. Okay, so let's see how our page looks like now. I'm going to close this one, hit refresh. Okay, we have our map, but it's quite small, so we need to expand the size. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back to our CSS here, and we're going to say contact page, and inside that we have a banner, and inside that we have an iframe. So here we will say that the width is going to be 100% and the height is going to be, okay, I think we had a specific height set up for that. Let's see what was that height. So it's 416.66. So I'm going to say 416.66 pixels. Let's save this. Let's get back to our page and let's hit refresh. Okay, we have our Google Maps in our contact page, and let's add our contact form over here. Okay, so what we'll do is after the paragraph ends here, I'm going to create a simple div tag which is going to hold the contact form. So I'll say contact form. Inside that we'll create a form. I don't need this, and inside this we'll create a table, and this is going to have a tr with the td. Now if you remember, we already created a contact form, so let me go ahead and get that. Okay, as you can see in lesson number 9 we have our contact form. So I'm just going to copy this. I'm going to take the entire form from here to here. Let's copy that and close this, and in our contact us page I'm just going to paste this. Great, let's get back to our page. Let's hit on refresh, and then our contact us page is now ready. Okay, now the only part left for us to do is to connect these pages together so that they can navigate. So if I click on home, see, nothing is happening. We cannot go anywhere, we cannot move anywhere. So basically we need to connect these pages to each other so that they can navigate easily. Let's go to our code. Now let's go to our home page first. So this is where we have to start from. So let's go to our home page, and then we are going to connect all the pages to where they belong. So this is our navigation menu. I'm going to connect this one to index.html, and we'll connect this one to aboutus.html. We do not have anything for services. That's completely fine. We have services page, so I'm going to remove this, and we have services here. So that is service 1, I'm just going to copy this and paste it here and then here. So let me remove this one. Let's see, what do we have here? We have service 2, and then remove this, and then we have service 3. Let me save this. We have the products page. I'm going to just remove this one, and let's go to our products page here, and then finally we have a contact us page. Okay, once you connect the home page, you have the navigation bar. That's more than enough. All you have to do now is copy paste the same navigation bar to all the pages. So I'm just going to copy this. Let's go to our about us page, and you can see the same navigation is available here. Just replace this code with this one. Same thing I'm gonna do with my contact us page. Let's paste it here, and yeah, index we have done already. Next is the contact page, so just paste it over here. Okay, now the only one which is left out is the services page. Let's go to our service 1, and what we'll do now is we're going to replace this, but there's going to be a slight difference. All the pages outside are now connected to the pages with the dot dot slash sign. So just take this one, dot dot slash, and this one is actually directly going to be the services page. So hold shift. This is service 1, this is service 2, and this is service 3. Let's select that one, and here we need to get out of this folder, then connect to the products. Same thing goes here. Great, we have connected our navigation bar. Let's save that. Let's check that out, how that is going to display in our browser now. So if I click on home, that should take me to my home page. Great, this is my home page, and this is my about page, my service 1, service 2, service 3. Okay, I think service 3 is not connected. Yeah, that's because we did not add the same navigation inside our services page. So I'm going to copy this. This is service 1, and go to service 3, and let me replace this with this one. Just paste it here, and the service 2, paste it here, save this. Let's get back here, let's refresh. So I'm going to go to home, about, we have service 1, service 2, service 3, we have products, and then we have contact us. Great, we have built our complete website. Hey guys, in this class I'm going to show you how does responsive design work. So the first thing, very mandatory, you will have to have this in your file. If this is not there, responsive design would not work. So make sure that you have this line. Now once you have done that, what we can do is we can create a div. I'm going to call this as a box, and inside this let me add a h3 tag. I'll say lorem, and I just want only some of it, so I'm just going to remove the extra stuff what I have here. And then let's create a paragraph tag, say lorem, save that one. Okay, so now I need to style this. So what we can do is we can say that dot box width is around 1000 pixels, height is auto, and I would say that the background color is teal color. I'll say the padding is 25 pixels, font family is sans serif. Okay, so let's see how that looks like. So if I refresh, okay, it looks like this. I need to change the color of the font, so I'm going to set it to color as white. Let's save this. Hit refresh. Okay, it would be a really good idea if I can get the box in center. So I'm going to say margin as auto, and let's refresh. Okay, so now you can see that we have this box, right? So if I go back to my code, you can see that I have given a fixed width called 1000 pixels. Now right click here and inspect, and you can see that I have enabled my responsive thing. So you can see this is the toggle device thing. So if I click on this, the entire thing becomes smaller like this. So this is kind of an issue, but also when I compress this, I get a scroll bar. That means I will have to scroll right and left to read the content. So that's not a good thing. In responsive design, you usually scroll from top to bottom, not to right to left or left to right. Okay, so let's see how we can fix this. I'm going to remove this. Let's refresh this one. So let's get back to our code. Now instead of specifying width, I'm going to specify max width. Okay, so now what happens is when I get back to my page, let's hit refresh, and if I compress this, see, it doesn't become smaller anymore. So we have the content which is exactly the size what we give. See, it's the same size, but when I compress it, it fixes with my device width. That is a specialty of responsive design. So also, let's just say now I want to change the background color of this when I compress my file. Okay, so let's see how we can do that one. And I get back to my regular size. And now here what we need to do is we need to specify what is the breakpoint we need to give. So for that we're going to use the media set. So say media. When the media reaches the max width of 500 pixels, we need to do something. So what you need to do something, you can add it directly here. So what I need is, I need the box background color should become orange. Okay, now that we are here, we can compress it. See what happens. Keep an eye on this one. See, when this reaches 500, check out what happens when I compress this, and we are almost there. See, as soon as it reaches below 500, the color changes. This is how you can actually work with responsive design. In this class, we're going to show you how you can animate a div tag. For example, I have created a div box here. If you could use style. This is a style. I have specified the width, the height, the background color, and I have given the position as absolute. So if you go to a browser and hit refresh, you can see this is the box what I have. Now what I want to do is I need to give some kind of animation here. So let me show you how you can add an animation. The first thing is you need to add a media called keyframes. So I'm going to call this as run me and open the flower braces. So then we need to call this over here. So I need to add a animation name. The animation name is run me. It's the same animation name what we are given here. Now what we'll do is we will add animation duration. I'm going to set the animation duration to around 3 seconds, and I'm going to give now animation iteration count. I'm going to set that to infinite. That means it's going to be running like forever. In animation, we have like the starting from option and the ending to option. So here you can give anything, like for example, I can set the background color, which is right now light coral. From light coral, I want to change the color of the background to parrot green. Let's save this one. Let's get back to the browser and let's hit refresh. You can see how the color now changes, but that's going to keep on happening forever. So this is a simple animation example. So from and to is not the only option you can apply inside this. We have other options, like for example, you can choose the percentage. I'm going to set 0% over here, and then I'm going to specify 25%, the another one as 50%, and the next one as 100%. So I have given around 4 breakpoints for my animation here. The first one is going to start from this. I want the position to be changed. So from left, I'm going to set it to 0, or let's set it to 10 pixels. And when it reaches 25, what I'm going to do is I'm going to set the top to 0 pixels too. Actually 10 is better. Okay, when I reach 25 pixels, I want it to move from left to 210 pixels, and top will be as usual, that is around 10 pixels. Now let's see how that looks like. If I hit refresh, see, that moves. Now we need to add some more options. Let's go to our 50% option. So when it reaches 50%, I want it to be in left from 210 pixels. It is going to come down now. So I want top as 210 pixels. Let's see how that's gonna work. Let's hit refresh. Okay, that's looking good. So we have a small glitch here. So let's see where is that glitch coming from. So we've given the top as 10 pixels over here. So what we'll do is we're gonna give the same thing in our document too. I'm just gonna paste it here. It may come back now. Let's hit refresh. Yeah, now the animation looks smoother. Now it's trying to go back and it's kind of moving here. That's because I've not given much more stops here. Let's get back. And now I have directly 100%. I'm going to add another one called 75%. When it reaches to the 75%, what I want is I want it to move left to 10 pixels. And I want the top to be around 210 pixels. Let's see how that is going to work out. So let's get back here. Let's hit refresh. Okay, that's actually pretty good. So the 100% version is automatically taken since I have not given anything. But you can see in the 100% we have a small glitch. It's kind of trying to stay left, but it's going inside. So let's complete that one too. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set here when it reaches 100%, I want the left to be 10 pixel and I want the top also to be around 10 pixels. So basically it's the same thing what we have given here. Let's get back, let's hit refresh, let's see how that works. Great, our animation is looking good. So what we can do is we can actually add some more changes to it. For example, I can change my width and height. So we'll start from 0. So when it reaches here, I want the width to be around 50 pixel. And I want the height to be around 50 pixel. And same thing I want it when it reaches this one. So I'm going to set the width as 50 pixel. I'm going to set the height also as 50 pixels. Save that. Let's get back to our browser and let's hit refresh. Okay, that is actually looking pretty good. So what we can do is we can add some more functionality to this. So when it becomes this much, I want it to rotate. So I'm going to use transform rotate and I want it to rotate to around 90 degree. Okay, and I'm going to copy the same thing and paste it over here. And I want to change the background color to parrot green, pale green actually, and I'm going to change this one, the background color, to just green. Save this one. Let's see how that looks like now. If I hit refresh, okay, that is looking good. So this is how you can apply animations to your site. Hey guys, welcome. In this course, we're going to learn the essential parts of JavaScript. JavaScript is the programming language of the web. Usually, a lot of people confuse JavaScript with Java. Now, there's a huge difference when it comes for JavaScript and Java. Java is a programming language which is completely dependent on IDE. That means in order to run Java in your computer, you need to have Java installed on your computer, and also you need an IDE to run that. And also it is used for software development and it requires a compiler to run. When it comes for JavaScript, JavaScript is a browser-based programming language. That means you do not need any kind of IDE or any kind of software to be installed on your computer to learn or run JavaScript. The only thing you need to run JavaScript is just a browser and a notepad. And you can use any latest browser like Chrome, Opera, Safari, Firefox, anything will work fine. It also works fine with all the code editors. So there's no specific recommendation that you have to use Notepad++ or Sublime or Visual Studio Code or nothing like that. You can use any code editor as you wish. One of the most amazing parts of JavaScript is that it is simple and it is easy to start and learn. JavaScript uses a very easy to learn syntaxes. So the big question is, where is JavaScript used? JavaScript is used in bigger applications like Acrobat, Photoshop, and many other popular applications. JavaScript is also used in the server-side programming like Node.js and Google Apps Script. So if you check out some of the history of JavaScript, JavaScript was first developed in 1995 and was named LiveScript. But then Netscape took over JavaScript and they named it as JScript. Then the JScript was renamed to ECMAScript in 1997, and in 1999 the official name was called as ECMAScript 3. In 2009 JavaScript released the ECMAScript 5, and the latest currently now which is available is ES6. ES7 is still under development and it requires a lot of functionality. ES6 and ES7 will not be covered in this course, although we are going to cover until ES5, and you're going to learn all the essential parts of the JavaScript. So there is a lot to learn, so let's get started. In order to get started with JavaScript, you should know HTML and CSS. Even if you know a little bit of basics of HTML and CSS is also completely fine. Here we have HTML, which is completely based on content and how the structure of the website is going to work. Where the CSS is completely based on the different types of styles and how you're going to present your website with the help of CSS. Where the JavaScript is completely based on behavior. That means with the help of JavaScript, you can manipulate your complete HTML and CSS. So in order to learn JavaScript, you should know HTML and CSS. Now, once you know HTML and CSS, we are good to go with JavaScript. Here you can see that I have a very simple HTML document. Let me show you how this looks like in the browser. So right click, copy path, just go to a browser and paste this. So it's a basic heading, it has some paragraph and it has some unordered list. So let me show you how you can write your first JavaScript function. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a simple alert box inside my file. Now if you check out, each and every tag inside the HTML has a opening and a closing tag. For example, for the head tag we have an opening tag and a closing tag. Same goes for the heading and paragraph, and same thing for the unordered list too. In the same way, we are going to add a opening tag for our JavaScript. Its name is script, and we will also be adding a closing tag. Now inside this I'm going to create a simple alert message, and inside that we're going to put quotations and call this as hello world. And save this. Let's get back to our browser, and if you hit refresh, there we have our first JavaScript statement which says hello world. When it comes to JavaScript, there are some rules that we have to follow. There are some do's and don'ts. For example, here you can see in the first one that we have created a simple alert message. This is what we have created in our file. It simply says alert and then we have a hello world. Now what you should know is that JavaScript is case sensitive. So if you create a capital A with an alert and then if you write this is not going to work. Statements in JavaScript are a specific job which you want to do in your document. For example, it might be changing the color of your heading, calculating the age, moving an image, or animating an image, or hiding a menu, or giving some alert as an important message. Statements are written in a single line. So when you see the semicolon here, that is an end of a statement. For example, here I have 3 statements. So you can use multiple lines to create your statement. The first one which you can see here is a single statement, and below that we have another statement, and then we have another statement. Whitespace in JavaScript is completely fine. JavaScript is case sensitive but not whitespace sensitive. So when you create your JavaScript file, you can see that we have this alert message. This is what we have built. You can also write the alert message like this. You can give some white spaces, that will work still fine. You can also write JavaScript like this. You can give an alert message, put that in the next line, and then you can close it. That also works fine. But this is where things start to matter. For example, here what's happening is in the first 3 lines of code, my JavaScript easily understands that it has to pop out a alert message as hello world. But in the 4th one, what's happening is my JavaScript knows that it has to output an hello world message, but with a lot of space in between. Now in JavaScript you can use comments. So you can use comments to declare something, you can use comments to disable a specific line of code. There are 2 ways how you can declare a JavaScript comment. The first one is by putting a 2// and you can specify this as the comment, and the next one is alert hello world, and you can write the same comment after this statement has been ended. And the next one which we have is this is called a block comment. So anything goes between this is going to be completely disabled. I use most of the time block comments to disable a specific function or a huge large statement temporarily, or even to create some kind of documentation like how my JavaScript is built or how my JavaScript program works. The browser renders the entire HTML file line by line. Let me show how this thing works. I'm going to move this JavaScript file in the head section. You can see that most of the websites in their code, they usually place the JavaScript in the head section, and most of the websites, they place the JavaScript in the footer section. It is always recommended to put your JavaScript in the footer section. I'm going to show you why in the further classes. So I'm going to save this and I'm going to copy this URL here, and I'm going to go to my browser and paste this and hit refresh. Now you can see my JavaScript is loaded. It says hello world, but check out what's happening. None of my content is visible. That's because since the browser renders everything line by line, it is going to check my head section first, and when it finds that there's a JavaScript function and it is waiting for my command. So I have to click on OK until and unless the page will not be loaded. So in case if I click on OK, then the page gets loaded. Now this is one of the specialty of JavaScript. JavaScript basically kind of has a high priority in the browser. So the JavaScript code loads first and then the other loads last. So you have to make sure that your JavaScript is optimized, and you have to place all your JavaScript in the footer. Placing the JavaScript in the head section would be completely fine. But again, if you have a huge script, more than like around 100 lines of code written in your JavaScript, that kind of slows down your complete website. So I am not a big fan of storing the JavaScript in the head section, so I'm just going to move this to the footer section over here. But again, let's think about it. If the JavaScript code is in my footer and I'm writing it like this, and tomorrow if I have around 200 lines of code in my JavaScript, what if I want to use the same JavaScript code and I have around like 100 pages of HTML? So basically I will have to copy and paste my entire JavaScript again and again to each and every page. Now we don't do that in CSS, do we? So basically in the CSS, we create one style sheet and then we link it to each and every page, so that it is easier to manage. You change style sheet once and it is automatically changed in all the pages. We're going to follow the same rule when it comes for JavaScript too. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to create a folder here, and I'm going to call this as JS. And inside this, I'm going to create a file called custom.js. Now you have to make sure that you name the file as .js. So the browser should know that it is a JavaScript file. Now what you can do is you can take your alert message which you have here, cut it, and then get back to your custom.js and then paste it over here. Okay, so let's go back to our index.html. Now we have an empty script tag here. So what we need to do is we can use this empty script tag to connect to our JavaScript file. So what we can do here is we can specify an src and then hold Control and spacebar. That's going to show you the folder. Go to JavaScript and choose custom.js. Now since I have an empty line here, I'm going to remove that. Okay, so this looks fine. Let's save this. Let's see how that works in our browser. So if I refresh, it still works fine. But check out what's happening. Now my content is completely visible and then I get my hello world message. That's because now the code is read line by line. And since JavaScript is at the end of the page, it is loaded at the last. Let's click on OK. Let's get back to our browser. Now, most of the time you might see that a lot of people specify the JavaScript type attribute inside this. So they would be like, okay, this is text/JavaScript. People might be writing this. Maybe this is because their website is pretty old, or the terminology what they're using to write JavaScript or HTML is pretty old. Now, in our case, we're using HTML5, so that's completely fine if you don't use this, because by default HTML5 gives us the permission to remove the type attribute from the script tag. So by default my HTML5 file knows that I'm writing a JavaScript file. But this is not the case when you come to ES6 or ES7. So there we'll be using something called Babel.js, and that's a completely different way how you write JavaScript. So there you'll have to specify type and then you have to specify Babel. But we're going to see that in the JavaScript ES6 and ES7 course. When you're working with JavaScript, you usually come across a lot of data. For example, sometimes you might want to require to store the data of a specific person, like his email ID, his date of birth, phone number, age or address or something like that. Now with the help of JavaScript, you can create variables, and that is how you can actually store data. You can create a text called var. That is how we can store the data inside variables. You can just give var and name, comma, email, and phone numbers. Now basically what happens here is you have created 3 variables called name, email, and phone number. You can also create them separately with the help of var and year. And you can give a semicolon there, that will be one variable, and then you can do the same thing for var customer email and var today's date and var box and var x, or anything as you like it. You can also create variables with the help of letters, numbers, underscores, and $sign. But make sure you don't start with a number. For example, if you create a variable called 99 boxes, it's invalid. So instead of that, you'll have to create a variable called boxes99 that would be completely valid. Now we have different types of data types when it comes for variables. We have integers, floating points, strings, boolean, arrays, date, and objects. So this might seem all kind of really confusing, but don't worry about it. We're going to cover a lot of things about all of these things in the further classes. Now setting a variable is quite simple when it comes for JavaScript. All you have to do is just type in var, where box is equals to 99. But what happens if you take the same box again, say var is equals to hello world, is basically it replaces 99 with hello world. You can also use single quotation to store your strings or text inside the variable. But when you're using the true or false, which we call it as booleans, you don't have to use any kind of quotations over here. You can directly type in true and false. JavaScript understands best which is true and which is false, or which is a boolean inside JavaScript. In every programming languages, we have something called conditions. So basically condition is more like a true or false scenario. So if something is true, we have to do something. If something is false, then we'll have to do something else. A typical condition look like this. We have if something is true, then we have to do something. If something is false, then we'll have to do something. Now what you have to understand that the condition is always in the true or false scenario. Now there are some programming guidelines which you should know. For example, we call these things here as parentheses. We have these things which we call as brackets, and we have these things which we call as braces. So make sure that you remember them very clearly. When I say use parentheses, we're going to use this. When I say use brackets, we're going to be using this. When I say use braces or flower braces or curly braces, we'll be using this one. So like I said, in conditions, usually it's with the true or false. For example, let's just say you have a if statement and then you are specifying an x. Now x could be anything. It could be 100, it could be 50, it could be 10. Now basically inside this if statement we are checking the question. So we are asking the question, is x lesser than 50? So if x is lesser than 50, then we have to do something. So if x is lesser than 50, then it will be true, so we'll do something. If it is false, then we'll do something. So basically everything goes with the true and false scenario. Some of the simple operations which you can see inside the JavaScript is operators. For example, if we check that a is equals to b, in our case, let's just say a is 10 and b is also 10, then we'll be checking like this. So if a is equal to b, so when you say equal to, we will not use a single equal sign, we'll be using a double equal sign, and then we'll have to do something here. So these are some of the basic operators which we'll be working with. So we have a is equal to b. Again, we have to use double equal to sign. Now after that, we have a is greater than b. And if something is not equal to each other, then we'll use the exclamatory mark over here. Now in JavaScript, we have another method of specifying the triple equal to sign. We'll get in deep about triple equal to sign in the further classes. You can always extend your condition. So for example, if something is true, you'll do this, but what if something is not true and you have to do something else? Then you can use the else statement here. So you can just type in if something is true, do this, else you can do something else. Nested condition is something where you can nest the different types of conditions available in your program. For example, if something is true, we'll do this, and inside that, if something else is true, then we're going to do something else nested inside. Then outside we can write the else statement. You can also specify else statement here, and this is how you can nest the statement inside. For example, we'll check if the username is true, then we're going to go inside and check for if username and password is true, and then we'll check out what is going on there. Else we'll go outside and write something else to do. Operators are one of the most important parts of JavaScript. If you want to create something, and if you want to calculate something, or if you want to do any kind of operations, operators are required. We have basically arithmetic operators, Those are addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. And for addition we use a plus sign, and for subtraction we use the minus sign, and for multiplication we use the star sign, and for division we use the forward slash sign. Assignment operator is basically an equal to sign. So basically you assign something to something else. For example, here we have a value called a plus b, and the result of that we are storing inside another variable called result. Now here we are using the assignment operator to assign all of these values to the result. There are multiple ways how you can work with the assignment operators. For example, you have a score and you are assigning that score to the value of 10. So you'll be basically writing score is equal to score plus 10. One of the easiest way to write this is simply specifying score plus equal to 10. There is no mandatory rule that you have to use only this one or this specific one. You can choose which one is easier to use. The same way we have options for other operators like plus equal to, minus equal to, multiplication equal to, and division equal to. We have operator precedence. So basically in JavaScript, what happens is the value for the multiplication is given first and then the value for the other operators are given next. For example, if we have a variable called result and inside that we are storing 10 plus 10 multiplied by 5, which should be the answer actually 100, but we don't get that 100 here, we get 60. That's because the multiplication happens first. So we have 10 into 5, which is 50, and then it adds up to the 10, so that becomes 60 there. So if you want the answer to be exactly how you want it and you want the addition to happen first, then you'll have to put it inside the parentheses. So that would be like 10 plus 10, put that in parentheses, and then you're multiplying that with the 5. So what happens here is the 10 plus 10 gets added first and then it gets multiplied by 5. And then those values are stored inside the 100. The same way we have comparison operator where we can compare one variable to another variable. So if you have a is equals to 5 and b is equals to 10, a lot of people forget that is equal to is an assignment operator and they use it like this. So if you do this, what happens is when you say a is equals to 5 and b is equals to 10, but in the if statement when you specify a is equals to b, the value of b is now changed to a. And now by default it is going to be true. It's not going to show you an error, it's not going to show you any kind of debug message or anything. It simply will stop running. So in this way this particular code becomes an bug. So make sure that you use the assignment operator properly, and this is a assignment operator, not a comparison operator. So here we'll have to do the comparison. For example, here we have a is equals to 5 and b is equals to 10. When we compare this, use the double equal to sign, a is equals to b, obviously the answer will be false because a is not equal to b. We have another operator with a triple equal to sign. So basically we are checking whether a is equals to b. So here, yes, it is going to be false because a is not equal to b. Most of the times, let's just say you set the a is equals to 5 and you set the b in with the string option with 5 inside it, and if you use this, it's still going to be false. Let me show you an example of how this works. Okay, here I'm inside my code. I'm going to specify var a is equals to 5 and I'm going to set var b is equals to, I'm going to put it in quotations, I'm going to set it as 5. And let me close this and let's create a simple comparison operator. So I'm going to say if, and here if I specify that a is equals to b, and then inside this I'm going to specify the answer with the console.log, and I'll give the answer as true. So let's see if this works. I'm going to save this, go to copy path, paste it in the browser and hit refresh. Now if I right click and inspect, you can see there is a console tab here. Just click on that one and you can see that it is giving it as true. So let's do the same thing when I specify the 3 equal to sign. If I assign this, basically it's going to check whether a and b are strictly equal to each other. So if I save this and now I'm going to go back to my browser, and if I hit refresh, it doesn't give me any answer. That's because I have not given any else option. So let's write some else statement. Else, say console.log is false. Let's save this one, and if I get back here and if I hit refresh, you can see it says false. Now what happens is if I remove just one operator here and if I save this and if I get back to my browser and hit refresh, that's going to be true. Because in double equal to sign, what happens is we are basically checking whether the values are equal to or not. Yeah, in this case both are equal, but when I use the triple equal to sign, we are basically asking the program to check the value strictly, so strictly whether they are equal to each other or not. So in this case, if I get back and hit refresh, that's going to set it as false. In the same comparison operator, we have whether it is not equal to a specific value. For example, we have a is equals to 5 and b is equals to 10, and if I say here that if a is not equal to b, that's going to be true because here a is not equal to b. And if you're using this strict comparison, then you'll be using a double equal to sign with a exclamatory mark, so that is going to be also as true. There are some other comparison operators. For example, we have here we check whether a is greater than b, whether we check a is lesser than b, a is greater than or equal to b, whether it is lesser than or equal to b. The same way we have logical and or operator. So most of the times if you want to compare several things, let's just say you have around like 7 to 8 different values which you want to compare. So basically we're going to check like this. We'll say that if a is equals to b and c is equals to d, then we are going to write something. So what happens here is we are comparing both the options together. So let's just say if I want to skip one and I want to check only one of it is true, then I'm going to use OR method. So it's going to be like if a is equals to b or c is equals to d, the program is going to run. Let me give an example. Let's just say if the username and password is correct, then we'll let the user log in. In the OR method, if the username is a name or an email, we will let the user log in. The same way we have a modulus, but in modulus, instead of dividing or multiplication, we are checking the remainder. For example, I just create an year called 2003, and if I want to check the leap year of that particular year, then I'll be writing to the modulus of 4. So that will give me a remainder with the 3. The same way we have increment and decrement. For example, instead of writing a is equals to a plus 1, we can write a plus or equal to 1 or a plus plus. It is exactly the same as plus plus a, or the same thing goes for the subtraction also. But there's a quite difference when it comes for prefix and postfix. So in my case, I'm using a prefix here. So what happens is when you create a variable a is equals to 5, and if you set the prefix option, that is plus plus a, the answer would be 6. But if you use a postfix, it's going to result it to 5. Now what's happening here is when you're setting plus plus a prefix is already added. That means 1 is already added to the particular variable. So your answer would be 6. But if you say postfix, it's going to still give you 5, but the next time when you create something, it's going to give you 6. Now that we have looked into the if and else statement, the same way we have ternary operator. Ternary operator usually gets assigned with the question mark. So I'm going to show you how this ternary operator works. So let's just say we have a player 1 with a score of 500 and we have a player 2 with a score of 600, and then we have a variable set to high score. So right now I do not have any value for the high score because I want to check that. So here I'm going to write an if else statement that if player 1 score is greater than players 2, then we'll set the high score to the player 1, else we'll set the high score to the player 2. This is using the if else statement. Now we can do the same thing with the ternary operator. So we will set the variable high score, and here we are going to check whether the player 1 has the high score greater than player 2. If this condition is met to true, then we'll take player 1 as the high score, or we will take the player 2 as the high score. Console log is one of the best developer tools which you have it in almost every browser. It's available in Edge browser, it is available in Chrome browser, it's there in Firefox, Opera, Safari, it's almost there in everything. I'm using Chrome in my computer. So let's see how we can work with this one. So we already have a message here which specifies as false. That's because in my previous code I have written this if and else statement, and that's going to give me that output. I can clear that by simply typing clear. That's going to clear that out. So here I can do a lot of things. I can do a simple calculations. I can create variables. I can say var num1 is equals to 5. I can store the data inside that, and when I say num1, that's going to call out the variable over there. And I can use console.log to output those variables. So I can say console.log, and here I want to use num1. Okay, that's going to give me output as num1. We have a lot of other extensions with it. So we have warn. So basically what warn does is gives you an yellow exclamatory mark there. We have error, so which we can display a simple error. So go ahead and practice with the console.log, and here you can do a lot of things. So let's just say if you want to write multiple lines inside this, you can always use the shift one. So for example, I have if, and I'm checking that num1 which I created is, which the value is 5. I'm going to check whether it is equal to 5, and if I want to go to the next line, I can hold shift key and I can hit enter. That's going to get you the next key, and I can open this one again, hold shift and hit enter. I can hold shift and enter, and then here I'm going to specify tab, say console.log, and here I'm going to say true. Let's close this, and here also I can specify an else message, so I can type in the flower braces, hold shift and hit enter again, and inside this I'm going to give another console message, say console.log, and inside this I can write it as false. Let's close this, and now once you hit enter, that's going to calculate that. So our answer, what we have got, is true. So basically it's checking that if num1, which we specified the value was 5, we are checking whether it is equal to 5. The console.log will obviously output as true. Now many times in JavaScript you will have to repeat some stuff again and again. So this repeating of stuff is what we call it as loops. So let's just say that I have a statement called 1 and 2, and I want to repeat that statement like 4 times. So instead of writing that statement 4 times, what I can do is I can gather that statement and just write it 1 time, and I can tell JavaScript to repeat it 500 times. One of the example of the loops is while loop. It is exactly similar as the if statement. If you check out the if statement, we have a condition, and when the condition is met, we'll do something. The same way in the while loop, we have a condition, and when the condition is met, we do something. But the only difference here is we add an increment. Now there is a reason for it. So let's just say that when we create a variable a is equals to 1, and we are checking a condition where a is lesser than 10, which is basically true, and we are going to do something. If you don't specify the a++, a is always less than 10, and this loop will go on forever. So in order to stop this, what we can do is we can write an increment option. So every time a is less than 10, a +1 will be added to the a. So in this way, what happens is every time the loop goes back to the condition, 1 is added to the a variable. So in this way, the loop will start counting from 1 to 10. And once the condition is met to 10, the loop will stop. The same way we have the do while loop. So here we have a simple example of while loop. Now you can check out the do while loop. Basically what's happening is we are running the statement first and then checking for the condition. Here, until and unless the condition is met, the statement will not run. But here, either it is met or it is not met, the statement is going to run at least once and then the condition is met. One of the famous loops is for loops. You can see this is a while loop which we have here, and this is the for loop. So here we are specifying if I is equals to 1 and I is lesser than 10, then increment it, and then we are going to do something. Now getting a loop started is quite easy, but one of the difficult part is to stop the loop in between. So let's just say I have I is equals to 1 and I want to loop it around 10 times, but I want to stop when it reaches 5. So this is what you can do. You can specify if I is equals to 5, we can use a break keyword. And what happens here is as soon as the loop is met to 5, it is going to break the loop. The same way we have the continue loop. So here what happens is as soon as the condition is met to 5, we can specify what to do and then we can continue the loop. Let me show an example how the while loop works. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a var. I'm going to specify a is equals to 1. And here I'm going to specify while and to do something. So here we can specify the condition that if a is lesser than 10, we need to do something. So we are going to specify a console.log message, and here we can specify what that message would be. So that would be basically hello world, and I'm going to say here a++. And close that. Let's copy the path. Let's go to a browser and paste it. Now right click and inspect. Now if I go to my console, I can see it has outputted the data around 9 times. It shows 9. Again, if I hit refresh, you can see it counts around 9 times, but I cannot see what's happening. So what we can do here is I can specify a, and I can give a plus sign, and let me give some space. And if I get back to my browser and if I hit refresh, you can see it's starting from 1 to 9, it is counting. So it's starting from 1 to 9, it's going to just count like around 9 times. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change this one to 0. So if I do this, if I get back here and if I hit refresh, and it starts from 0, it's going to count till 9. So basically we have around 10 counts available. What we'll do is we'll comment this out and let's create a do while loop. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a do while loop. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to specify var a is equals to 0, and I will specify do, and upon the flower braces, while a is lesser than 10, and I need to close this here, and inside this I can specify what it has to do. So I'm going to say console.log, and inside this I'll say a plus, give a space, and I'll call this as hello world. Now since the same message, I can change this. I can change this to byword. Let me remove this and put this, and then we'll specify a plus plus and close that. Then let's copy the path and paste it here and hit run. Now I can inspect this, go to console. I can see this also starts from 0 and it's going to count till 9, and now we have the byword. So let's comment this out. Let's see how we can work with the for loop. So I'm going to say for I is equals to 1, and I can specify I is less than 20, where I plus plus. And now here we can specify what it has to do. So I will say console.log, and inside this I will give I plus, give a space, hi there. And let's close this. Now if I go to my browser and if I hit refresh, you can see it's counting from 1 to till 19. Because we specified it as 1, I'm going to change this to 0. Let's get back to our browser and let's hit refresh again. Okay, it's counting from 0 and it is counting till 19. So basically we have around 20 count. So let's just say I want to break it when it reaches 6. So we can do that with the help of the break keyword. So what we can do is, since this is happening here, I can specify if the condition where I is equal to 6, then break it. Save that. Now get back to my browser. If I hit refresh, see what happens. As soon as the number 6 is met, it is going to break. Now we can do the same thing for the continue. So here what we'll do is we'll specify a simple message, say console.log, and here I will say we have reached 6. Let's close that, and here I will say continue. Let's save this one and get back to your browser, and if you hit refresh, see what happens now. You have the count starting from 0 till 6, and when it reaches 6, we have reached 6 is going to give us a message, and then it continues again. One of the most important parts of JavaScript is that you have functions in this. So basically, what are functions? Now let's just say we have a set of rules to do. We have some set of methods to do, basically like getting the height of a window, getting the width of a window, or calculating area, checking a value, a lot of other things. So what we can do is we can group all of these functions, or you can take some of this function and you can group them into separate pieces. We can call these separate pieces as functions. For example, in order to calculate an area, we can get window height, width, and you can calculate area and we can store that area, and we can call that as a calculate area function. The same thing we can do it for the create message. So we can do the calculations, we can check the value, and we can output the message, and we can store all of that inside a create message function. We can do the same thing for the animate image also. We can get the image position, calculate a new value, set the image position, and do a lot more other stuff, and then we can store all of those options inside animate image function. So one of the basic questions is, where do we declare functions? So what you have to always know that you have to declare the functions once you write the function. So define your functions before you call them. So you'll have to always define your functions before you call them. So for example, if you create your function and then if you define it, so basically this function is going to look for before even it is called. So since the function does not exist, that's going to throw up an error. So instead what you can do is you can define your function first, maybe like do something, and then you can call the my function later. So in that way, as soon as the function is called, it is going to look before where it is declared, and then it's going to do whatever you have specified the function to do for. Now functions can have parameters. So basically parameters are written inside these parentheses. So just say I have given a parameter like x, y, and z. So here I'm storing all of these calculations inside A. So I'm adding all x, y, and z. I'm storing all of that value inside a variable A. Then I'm going to output that variable A here, and here I can use a return function. So what's happening here is my function is getting the value from the user, it is calculating it, storing the data inside the variable A, and also it is returning it to the browser with the return value. So basically my function is going to be more like my function 2, 3, and 4. It's going to output the data. So let's see how this works. So I'm inside my page here. So what we can do is we can create a new function. I'm going to call this as my function, and inside this I'm going to store x, y, and z, and inside this we'll say console.log, and here we can tell what that to do. So we need to calculate x plus y plus z. I need to give a comma here, and now we can declare this function. So this is my function. I'm just going to copy this and can go back to my browser, I hit refresh, and I can type in my function and I can put in the value. So let's just say I want to calculate 25 plus 25 plus 25. When I hit enter, that gives me the answer as 75. Now when you're creating variables inside the function, you have to always remember about the scopes. A variable which is created inside the function is called as a local scope. A variable which is created outside the function is called global scope. The reason is this variable is only calculated when the function is running, and once the running of the function is finished, this variable does not exist anymore. But when it comes for global scope, when you create a variable outside the function, you can actually call it inside your function also, do the calculation, and then the variable is still available outside the function. That's why it's called the global scope. Now remember, a variable which is inside the function is called a local scope. A variable which is outside the function is called global scope. Most of the times this happens that when you create a function and you forget to add a value. For example, let's create a my function and you're specifying x, y, and z, and when you run this function you forget to add the next one. So basically what happens here is the z becomes undefined. And when you create another function, we'll just say x, y, and z, but by mistake if you add another value, what happens here is the another extra value is basically ignored. So let's see how that works. Now here in our function we can see that we have added this x, y, and z, and basically we are calculating by adding it. Let's get back to our browser. I'm going to hit refresh. I'm going to call the same function again, but this time I'm going to add 25 extra. So if the calculation is going to take with all the additions, it should give me 100, but it will not. If I hit enter, it's basically going to give me 75. So in order to create a custom loop, what we'll do is we'll create a loop, and then we're going to store that inside a function so that we can manipulate that entire loop with the help of a function. So first thing what we have to do is we have to create a loop. I'm going to create a for loop, and here I'm going to specify I is equals to 0. Then I will specify that if I is less than 20, I will say I plus plus. Now this is our typical loop usually we work with. So here I'm going to say console.log, and I will say I plus, give a space, hello world, and let me close this. Now if I go back to my browser and if I hit refresh, you can see we have starting from 0 to till 19 hello world. So what we can do now is we can control the entire loop with the help of functions. So what we can do is we can cut this up and create a function, and I'm going to call this as loop from. You can name it anything you like it, and inside this I'm going to call my loop. Just format this. Okay, that looks better. And here we can specify the value. So we need to specify a value for the I first. So basically I set to 0. I'm going to specify that as x, change this to x, and then we need to specify the value of y. So I'll give y, and I'm going to change this one to y. Okay, so what happens is now until and unless I have called these options, my loop is not going to run. So let's get back to our browser and let's hit refresh. You can see we don't have anything. So we'll say loop from, and I want to loop from 0 to 100. And if I hit enter, you can see we have a custom loop that starts from 0 and reaches till 100. And let me create another one. I'm going to change this to around 10 and hit enter. I can see this loop starts from 0 and it ends at 9. Okay, what we can do next is we can extend our loop options. For example, I want to break this. So if a condition is met, so let's just say if I reaches to the value of 5, I want it to break. This 5 is an external value which I need to specify, so I'm going to set this to z, and here let's give a comma, let's give it as z. Save this. If I get back to my browser, hit refresh, and I will say loop from, I'm going to say start from 0, loop till 20, and break when it reaches to 7. As soon as it reaches to 7, it breaks. Now we can get back. Let's create some more custom loops by giving a continue option. So when it reaches here, what I want to do is I want to give a console message which says, hi there, we have done it again. Let's give an exclamation mark, and then I'm going to say continue. Okay, let's save this. Let's get back to our browser and let's hit refresh. So what I want is I want to loop from 0 to 20, and when I reach 17, I want to break it and continue. You can see now we have the loop starting from 0 and reaches 17. It's going to give us our message and it's going to continue. So this is how you can create custom loops with the help of functions. Until now we were able to store data only using variables. So one variable would hold only one data. So if you're specifying one variable to hold a number, it could only hold number. With the help of arrays, you can store multiple values in a single variable. So that's what it does. It's hold multiple values. Another thing is that arrays are zero-based index. That means the counting starts from 0 instead of 1, 2, 3. So here I have an example of two ways how you can write arrays. The first one is just by opening a square bracket. The next one is by writing new array and then writing your data inside this. The first one is much more easier, so I'm going to go with that one. So here what happens is the first one is by default indexed to 0. So basically if you want to locate this data, you'll have to go through the zero-based index. So here I have an example. You can see we have 1, 2 and 3. So basically 0 is set to 1, 1 is set to 2 and 2 is set to 3. So in case if I want to call out 3, I will have to use some data and I have to call out the array index as 2 in order to get the value of 3. Arrays have some inbuilt function which we call that as methods. So here you can see that there are 3 types of methods which we can use inside this array. So we have reverse, join and sort. So basically what reverse does that it reverses the entire array in whatever the manner it has been already stored. Join basically combines into a string, and sort basically sorts it in a proper way or in the right way. Let me show you a real-time example. Let's create a variable. I'm going to call this as some data, and I'm going to store some value inside this. I'm going to store 10, 20, 50, 30, 40 and 60. Now if you notice, the values are not properly aligned, so we have the greater number first, the smaller number later, so it's completely mixed up. We're going to sort this with the help of array. So what we're going to do is we need to call the sum data first, and I'm going to say sort, and sort is a method, so it's basically a function. Now what happens here is the data sum sort has generated completely new data for me, and I can take that new data and I can store it in a separate variable. So let me create a new variable. I'm going to call this as var new data is equals to, I'm going to store it in that one, and let's console log that. Say console.log, and inside that I'm going to store new data. And let's get back to our browser and let's hit refresh. Now you can see what has happened is it automatically sorted from 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 and 60. But if you check out our code, it's not properly ordered. We had 10, 20, 50, 30, 40 and 60. It's not properly ordered here. So there's another thing which you can do with the help of array. So we have seen sort. So let's see how the reverse works. I'm going to click on reverse. Let's save that one. Let's get back to our browser. Now if I hit refresh, the entire thing gets reversed here. The same way we have join. Now you can see all the data which you are getting is still in a zero based index. So I can completely join this into a string. So what I can do now is instead of reverse, I'm going to call this as join. So everything inside this array becomes a string. So if I get back to my browser and I hit refresh, you can see everything is a string now. If you're coming from other programming language, usually how you would define a number would be writing an int or a floating number or something like that. In JavaScript, you don't have all of those things. You just have numbers. All numbers in JavaScript are 64-bit floating point numbers. So for example, you write 20 or 20.0, it really doesn't matter. Both the things are same here. But there is one thing which you have to always take care when you're working with JavaScript numbers. There's a huge confusion when it comes to JavaScript additions and concatenations. Addition is where you add two variables, where concatenation is you join two variables. Now in the first example, you can see here I have given a is equals to 5 and b is equals to 5. So in the console log, if I add a plus sign, that would be an addition, and the answer I would get is 10. Now let's check out the other example. If you create a variable a is equals to 5, that's a string, and if you create a variable b is equals to 5, that which is also a string. So if you say console.log a plus b, it's going to join it. So instead of creating 10 as the answer, instead of giving 10 as the answer, it's going to give 55. So basically it is understanding, okay, these are two strings and you're supposed to join them, and it's going to join it. In the third example, I have given here another problem which most of the people come through, is that they create a variable phi, which is a number, and they create a variable phi which is a string, and they try to add it. So at this time, if any number is a string, if any number inside your JavaScript is a number and a string, and if you're trying to add it, it's not going to add up. It's going to still give you a string. So in this case, we have a variable a is equals to phi and b is equals to a string phi. So if you say console.log a plus b, so basically it's joining, so it's going to give you an answer as 55. There is another example here where I have created variable a is equals to phi, variable b is equals to string phi, but what has happened here is instead of adding them, we are multiplying them. So here JavaScript doesn't know what it has to do with it. So since it cannot output a number nor a string, it's going to give an output as NaN. Now NaN stands for not a number. So if you create a variable called a is equals to 55, and then if you try to use it as a number, you can't. In order to convert it to a number, you'll have to use a special function called number. So in my case, what I have done here is I've created a variable a is equals to 55, and in order to convert it to a number, I'm creating a new variable called my number, and then I'm assigning it to a pre-built function called number, and inside that parameter I'm giving the a, which is a string. So it will try to convert it to a number. So if it converts to a number, you'll get a number. If not, you will still get a NaN. But if you still get a NaN, how would you know that it is not a number? So in this case, we have a special function called isNaN. So basically this is going to check whether the variable is a number or it is not a number. So you can put that in a if statement, and the condition you can put isNaN, and inside that parameter you can put in the variable which is holding the number, and you can console log it. The function will automatically identify whether it is a number, whether it is not a number. In JavaScript, when you're working with numbers, we usually come around with a lot of maths. So in this case, we have a variable x is equals to 200.6, and if you want to round up to some number, we can use the math functions. So we have variable y is equals to math.round, and what do I want to round? I want to round the x variable which I created here. So 200.6 becomes 201. The same way, let's create a multiple variable, and we are going to create a var a is equals to 10, b is equals to 20, c is equals to 30. Now if you want to find the biggest number within these variables, you can create a variable called biggest number and say math.max and put in all the variables which you want to compare it between. So it's going to find the biggest number and it's going to give you the output. The same way we have the min, and there are some other options available like math.py, math.random, math.square root, and math.log. If you want to store a username, a password, an address, or a big paragraph, then basically you're going to use strings. In JavaScript, you can store strings with the double quotations or a single quotations. Both are completely fine. You can use both double quotations and single quotations just like this one. But don't try to create something like this. So let's just say you create my string and you're trying to quote somebody who said something. For example, he said that's fine and left. So you can see here the quotations are already there. Now basically what happens is when you put the quotations here and then you again open another quotations, basically closing the first one. So in order to avoid this issue, what you can do is as soon as you open a string and you close it, and whatever the text you're writing inside that, and if you're specifying even a single quotation or a double quotation inside, always use a backslash. It's a good method to avoid any kind of errors inside your JavaScript strings. Just like any other data type in JavaScript, even strings have methods and properties. The first one I'm going to show you how to work with a JavaScript property. For example, here we have a phrase, and this is a simple phrase. That's what it defines. Now we can output the length of the phrase. We can say console.log phrase.length. That will output how many letters does that phrase have. So in this case, it's 24. Now when it comes for methods in JavaScript, you can type in phrase.to uppercase. Now that's a method because you're trying to give a functionality to that. You are telling the JavaScript to do something here. So it's going to take the entire this is a simple phrase variable and it's going to convert it to an uppercase. There's another method which you can try with JavaScript is try to split it. For example, here we have a phrase called this is a simple phrase and we want to split it into different words. So you create a variable called words and say phrase.split, and then you give the quotations and give a blank space in it. Now this blank space refers to the blank space available over here. Now if you're trying to get a URL from the website and then if you're trying to break it, usually URLs have underscores or hyphens. So whatever you want to differentiate inside a string, specify it over here. I wanted to make a difference between each space, so I have given a blank space. So when I say phrase.split, it automatically creates an array inside the words variable. So it's going to output something like this, where the index of 0 will be this, 1 will be is, 2 will be a, 3 will be simple, and 4 will be a phrase. In strings, we have an index of, so let's just say you want to find a specific word inside a string. For example, here we have a phrase called we want a groovy keyword. So we can find the position of it by specifying phrase.index of. Now you can see here we are using camel case. So phrase.index of, and then you specify which word do you want to find. So it basically finds the first letter starting word of it. So we're going to start like 1, 2, even blank spaces are considered as letters and that will be counted too. So in this case, the answer is going to be 10. If nothing is found, the result will be -1. We can also find the last index of a string by simply specifying .last index of. If you ever bought a pizza and you want just a slice of it, you wouldn't take the entire pizza, right? You just take a slice of it. That is how the slice works inside the JavaScript strings. So here we have a variable called phrase, yet another phrase, and then what we want is we want a specific segment. So we say var segment and we say phrase.slice. So what it's going to do is here we need to specify the parameter. So I have given 6, 5. So basically it is going to find the 6th position with 5 letters. Now remember, it's a string, and when you say dot slice, when you add any method to it, it starts from 0. So we'll have like 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and when it reaches 6, it's going to cut 5 letters from it. The same way we have different types of methods like substring, substr, and a lot of other things. Now you have to know one thing, that when you're creating comparison, for example, if you're creating a simple validation, a simple login validation which checks the username and the password, so here what happens is the uppercase letters are always considered the less than the lowercase letters. Sooner or later, when you're working with JavaScript, you might want to work with dates. Now creating a huge list of arrays which holds dates and times and year data is going to be really difficult. So this is where your JavaScript dates come to action. In JavaScript, dates are one of the most easiest objects which you can work with. So for example, if you want to create a date, all you have to do is just create a var today is equals to new date. So what I'm doing is I'm storing the current date and time. When I say date and time, it is going to store each and everything. It is going to get from year, month, day, time, hour, second, millisecond, and everything is going to be counted in that. So when you're creating a variable called today and you're setting the new date inside that, you're storing all this data inside it. But sometimes you just want to get a custom date. You don't want the hour, milliseconds in each and everything. So that time you simply create a variable and set a variable name and assign the data as new date, where you can specify the year, month, and the day. Now you can see that the year is very specific, where the month index starts from 0. So if it is January, then it is basically 0. If it's February, it's 1. So it goes like that. The date starts from 1 to 31. We can create another variable with the same date object, and there we can specify year, month, day, hour, minutes, and seconds. Just like how we had methods to strings, arrays, and arrays, we have methods for the date object also. Here we are creating a variable called today, and we are storing new date, and we are storing the date object inside that. In order to get the specific month, all you have to do is type in get month. If you want the full year, type today.get full year. Now you can type simply today.get full year. Now this will get you the complete year, like 2012, 2019, 2020. It's going to get you the full year. Or you can simply type in get year, which is kind of deprecated, so you should not be using that anymore. We have get date, which is going to get the today's date, and then we have get hours and get time. Just like how you can get the month, year, day, hours, and everything, the same way we can also set month, year, and day. So all you have to do is just change the get and set it to set. So basically it's going to be like today.setMonth, and if you specify a parameter as 5, that's going to be set to the 5th month. So if you set full year to 2020, that will be set to the current year, or whatever the year you are watching the video now. Today.setDay will set it to 0. That's going to start from the beginning. We have been already working with JavaScript objects. If you remember, we worked with arrays and dates. Those are JavaScript objects. Well, creating a custom objects in JavaScript is quite simple. Instead of specifying name, score, and the rank, each and everything one by one, what we can do is we can create a variable here and specify it as player1 and open the curly braces. Now inside that, specify name. Now it doesn't have any kind of parenthesis, it doesn't have any kind of quotation, nothing. It's just name, and give a colon, and then use your data types. Like if you want to specify a string, put it inside the quotation. If you want to specify a number, just write it. And if you want to write a function, just give a name and write the function. And if you want to call those details of that specific object, all you have to do is simply say player1.name. So basically you're going to take this name and then put a dot sign and call the next name of it. So if you want to get the rank of that player1, simply say player1.rank. So in our example, what I have done is I have created 2 players here. So they both have different scores and different names. Just like any other programming language, in JavaScript also we have object-oriented programming language. So these are 2 objects which I have created here. And if you want to apply some OOPS concept to this, what we will be doing is we'll be creating a function, and that function is going to store the details of that player. So we're going to create a function called player details. Basically, with the help of this function, we can display the details of each and every player. So what we're doing here is we are saying console.log, and here we're using the this keyword. So basically when we create a this keyword, what happens, it is it assigns to whatever the function we are creating it for. For example, in this case, we are going to assign this function to these two players. So it's going to go automatically take whichever the player is called, is going to assign for that one. So say this dot name and then give a comma, so this dot rank and this dot score. So next what we'll be doing is we'll be creating a player1 dot log details. Now this is a completely new thing. It doesn't exist in my object, so it's completely empty. We don't have that log details here. We are creating a log details method inside the object, and we are assigning that to player details. Now player details is a function, but if you see, I have not called any parenthesis here, so it's completely blank. So basically I'm just storing the data here, and I'm doing the same thing for the player 1 and 2. And if you want to display all the details of the players, then simply say player1 dot log details, the one variable which we created, the one object which we created, and then put the parenthesis to that. So that is going to output the complete details of both the users, since we have called player 1 and 2.